Well, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Welcome to a special
Ooh.
spooky Halloween
Ooh.
edition.
Ooh. Yes.
Ooh.
And I don't think it's. I think
Of
isn't it?
serious business.
And I think Halloween was yesterday in real life, wasn't it?
It was literally yesterday.
Yeah. But that's when I watched the spooky film, so it still counts.
Yes, I didn't watch it yesterday. I watched it this morning.
Right. I was going to do that, but I knew I wouldn't have time, and I didn't.
Well, I did, and I did.
Hooray!
So, we, as you may know, well, I mean, you will definitely know.
Yeah.
We are joining you today on this, I was going to say this, the day after the spookiest of all days. Actually, just a completely normal day, because it's not like the spookiness actually carries over in any particular way. It's not like there's a Boxing Day of Halloween. It's just a normal day, the day after Halloween.
Although America's doing a good go of coming up with one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, let's not get into that. So, yes, on today, this average Sunday morning, we are coming here to talk to you about Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
It's only podcasts that go, and I've heard this in a lot of podcasts. Today we're going to be talking about, and then they add, oh well, everyone knows because you've read the title of the episode. I'm unclear as to why films still insist on putting the film's title up a few minutes into the film. It's like everyone knows. Everyone who's watching the film knows what it's called.
In that case,
this film did it.
It's more of a. That's like putting the title on the cover of a book or something, isn't it? It's
nope. No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Nope. The equivalent would be putting the title on, like, when you ask what film you want to go and see on the box office of the cinema, or when you select what film you want to watch on your digital media. Those, or on the box of the DVD or Blu-ray. Those are the equivalent of putting the title on the cover. But this is the equivalent of 3 chapters into the book, it just prints the name of the book again. I don't know why they do it.
I like it. I like it,
actually. Yeah.
I've always gotten a kick out of it whenever the title of the film appears.
It's all worth it.
I don't like that, generally speaking, these days, that's after the film's finished.
Oh, right.
I don't like that. I don't like that as a trend. I prefer the moment of catharsis of knowing, the Hocus Pocus has appeared on the screen. Yeah. That means I'm officially watching Hocus Pocus.
So, it's all the Lion King's fault, isn't it?
It is all the Lion King, as with so many things. It's all the Lion King's fault.
Yeah, it is. It's all worth it for the moment in the Power Rangers reboot movie, where in the middle of the soon-to-be Red Ranger crashing a truck because he tried to steal a cow or something, the screen just goes black and it incidentally says Power Rangers in the corner and then carries on. That's probably the best title reveal in all of cinema. I'm not even making fun.
Really small.
Yeah, and they meant it to be like that. It's not. It's a joke they successfully pulled off. I'm not making fun. You should watch the Power Rangers reboot, folks. It's quite good.
Yeah, it is in fact quite good.
Yeah,
and this is in fact not the last time in this podcast that I will be mentioning either Power Rangers or the Power Rangers film.
Sweet. Oh, I managed to preempt that and set up a callback. Great. Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. So, we thought we would talk about this a little bit because, it's good to have a Halloween.
And we've already done Boogedy, so what are we going to do?
We've already done Boogedy. Nightmare Before Christmas lives in that weird twilight zone between 2 holidays where I'm never sure whether it's a Halloween or a Christmas movie.
No, it's definitely both.
I think on balance it's a Christmas movie. Because, I mean, Halloween is like just finishing at the beginning of that film.
I think that the ideal window of time for that movie is for it to be, and I bet it was, launched at Halloween and run until Christmas. And then you can just watch it whenever you want in between those 2 times.
Yes, that's true. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
No.
We're talking about what has become Disney's kind of, I think, other most preeminent Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Weirdly, in a way.
Yeah. Because the odd thing is, this is something I want to put on the table, which is that I'm not a fan of this film from when it came out. This isn't one that I watched
Me neither.
as a child. And I always sort of thought retrospectively that might be because I just aged out of that sort of thing. But apparently, it came out in 1993, which is really what I consider to be my peak childhood year, where I was engaging the most with children's media. In an active way rather than just I'm a child, therefore someone sits me down in front of Postman Pat way. I don't know why I never watched Hocus Pocus or cared about it.
No, me neither. It's right in the zone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, when it came, like this is like between Aladdin and The Lion King. Like, there was no primer time for for my Disney fandom.
Yeah, it
Nor
was.
yours, really.
No, it was in fact, exactly the same time Nightmare Before Christmas came out, and I watched that.
Yeah, same. I watched that.
Maybe
that.
Maybe that was the choice. Maybe we chose between the two Halloween films Disney were offering.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that Hocus Pocus was not a success when it was released.
Really?
In 1993.
So it's had a resurgence.
Absolutely, it's had a resurgence. When it was released in 93, it was kind of a flop that no one particularly went to see. How much did it? Placed fourth in its opening weekend. Dropped out of the top 10 after 2 weeks of release. Was released on the same day as Free Willy, which was obviously much bigger than it.
Oh, that might explain it.
Wasn't very well reviewed.
Well, no.
Everyone was just generally like, meh.
Well, this is the thing. All of everything you've just told me is absolutely no surprise. Like, based on the film I've watched, that's no surprise. But based on its reputation as a film that people seem to like on the internet, it is a surprise.
Yeah, because it's one that, like, in the years since, through a combination of, like, home video, strategically placed airings on the Disney Channel at seasonally relevant times, etc. It's like, it just seems to have developed this weird momentum. DVD sales since then have been really good. Over the years, I'm now reading from Wikipedia. Over the years, through various outlets such as strong DVD sales and annual record-breaking showings on Freeform's 13 Nights of Halloween, the film has achieved cult status. On its 25th anniversary year in 2018, the first week of Hocus Pocus viewing on Freeform averaged 8.2 million viewers. Just this year, like in the middle of all of these strange pandemic times where, there are no actual films in the cinema, there's been a lot of, like, re-releases of older movies to kind of, like, give the cinemas something to show. And Hocus Pocus has been one of the most popular, like one of the highest grossing re-releases to be re-released this year. So, like, it's 100% a thing now.
Yeah.
In a way that definitely wasn't when it came out. When it came out, it was just like, they just released. They made a weird, bad film starring Bette Midler.
Yeah.
That was kind of stupid and very throwaway, and no one really liked it. And no one will be talking about that again. And here we are.
Okay.
I'm now very intrigued by this comment in the chat.
What's that?
Asking you whether you know that there's a disembodied hand floating around you.
That's very interesting. I do know all about the disembodied hand, yes. That is a disembodied hand that was conjured up yesterday while I was watching this film, because it's a very spooky film, and it just caused a disembodied hand to be conjured. It's just something I'm coming to terms with it. I'm living with it. And, it's 2020. What am I going to do? I can't. Because I don't want to go and see the doctor for anything that's not an immediate emergency. And I suppose, all it's doing is tickling me in interesting places.
In a way, it's a bonus.
Yeah, it's a Hocus Pocus bonus.
I don't
it's
know.
Hocus Pocus bonus.
Oh yeah, no, this is a film that completely.
I don't know what that person is on about. I don't know if they're making a Halloween joke or if there's a glitch on the screen. I can't see one on the stream, so I don't know what that's talking about.
No. I also don't know but we'll push on.
Yeah. So, if you're already sort of sad about the comments that we've already been making about this film, because you might be one of the people who think that it's really, really great, then the podcast for you is the recent Halloween special of a podcast called Return to Erie, Indiana, in which 3 people just gush endlessly about how they love every detail of this film. And I'm not going to be able... Sorry?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not going to be able to match that energy today. Let's put it that way, and there you go. But no, but now I've made it.
Talking about your mouse cursor, that's what it was.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Yeah, it's a pointy hand. Yes. Now I've made it sound as if we're about to launch into a fully negative review, which I'm not. There was loads of stuff I liked in this, and I'm going to talk about as we go on. But no, I don't get it as a great, brilliant film that people really, really like.
Do you remember did you listen to that episode?
Yes.
So do you remember, I don't require you to remember it in, verbatim, but
Sure.
Do you remember the broad strokes of what they talked about?
Yes, so the broad strokes of what they talk about, as I describe it now, is going to sound in some way dismissive. I'm trying not to be, because I really like... I haven't listened to any of the other episodes of Return to Erie, Indiana, the podcast, because it warrants a re-watch of Erie, Indiana, something I would love to do and intend to do. But I do listen to their other podcast, Don't Point That Horror at Me, where they talk about the old Point horror books. That's a great podcast, and I really like it, and I really like them. So that said, the content of the Erie, Indiana episode about this film is mainly just them reciting the script and then saying it's brilliant and the word iconic. And so it's just, they love it. They just love it. As I say, not doing them down, they're a good bunch. But... Yeah. They love this film in a way that I cannot possibly connect with, and in a way that can, which I totally understand, because it's a way that can only be born of having had it on video 20 years ago, or more, 26, 7 years ago, whenever it came out, and watching it over and over again as children, which is what they did, and the result is undying love. And I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of lots of things that I did that with.
Yeah. As the world's only fan of the Super Mario Brothers movie,
exactly.
Of course you understand this.
Totally understand it. The same year, by the way. Summer 93.
Yes, the same year.
Yep.
To double underline how much of a mark you could/should have been for this at that time.
Yep.
Do you think when did you first see this?
Last year.
Really? That was the first time you'd ever seen it?
Last Halloween was the first time. Well, yes, because it just looked awful. And so I didn't want to watch it.
Okay.
Do
you think... Sorry, go on.
No, I was about to say something that's going to be a broader point later on, so I'll bring it up again later. I was going to talk about the specifics of why I didn't want to watch it and what I don't like about it now. So that's going to come up. What was your question going to be there?
Do you think you would have liked this if you'd seen it in 1993?
That's the question. Yeah, I think I would have basically liked it. The question is, would I have loved it? Would I have been into it? The circumstances suggest not, because I had my fill that year. You know what I mean? I had my Mario that year. Aladdin was that year, and this doesn't live up.
Jurassic Park was this year.
Jurassic Park was this year. Yes, and I love Jurassic Park, but it wasn't one of the films that I was like, my life is now about loving this film. Like I think it was with most people. But I totally get the people for whom it was. It's just that I was full. I had Aladdin and Mario already. I think I would have liked this film specifically, and actually I'll compare this, because me and my brother, I don't know, let's call it 3-4 years before this, had massively got into Bed Knobs and Broomsticks sight unseen.
Right. Okay.
And that's a film I think I can compare to this, because it's a Disney live action, it's about a witch, and there's magic in it, and it's like, it ticks a lot of the same boxes. And, and it makes Hocus Pocus look like rubbish in comparison. But it's not a super popular film. It's one that had to get its resurgence later on. I don't think it did very well when it was launched. And so it compares in a number of ways. And so I think, yes, that indicates that it's the sort of thing. Oh, and big fan of Erie, Indiana, from which we have 2 cast members in this.
2?
Yeah, the cat.
Oh, wait, which version of the cat? Because the
Interesting
boy
point.
the boy who plays the
Yes.
boy
Yes.
is not the person who does the voice.
Indeed. And the boy who plays the boy is not even the person who does the voice of the boy. Yeah, it's always dubbed over by James Marsden, even when boy.
Jason Marsden.
Sorry, I'm thinking of James Marsden or Mars something from Sonic, right?
Same Marsden.
Yeah.
Different first name.
Yeah. So Jason then
Yeah.
Marsden, who was Dash X in Erie Indiana Series 2.
Oh, okay. So is Jason Marsden also just a live action actor? Because I mostly know him as a voice actor.
Let me give you an interesting point. He is not only a live action actor, such as in Erie Indiana and Boy Meets World, but he's one who's considered good looking. So why he wasn't playing the live action boy in this, I have literally no idea.
Me look up Jason, because I always just assumed he was a voice actor, because that's all I've ever, he's Max Goof, that's kind of what I know.
Same
Jason
year again, right?
Yeah,
wasn't that? I think? Or close to.
He looks like exactly the kind of boy who would play this boy.
Yes, exactly. So contemporary to now would have been his appearances in. Well, I think we're between his Erie Indiana and his Boy Meets World, right? And if you were to look at pictures of him in those two things and sort of try and come up with a midpoint between those two, that's what he would have looked like. As I understand it, he was looked upon favourably as a visual treat. This is something I've heard.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know, because it's now 27 years later and who we're going to ask. But that's the impression I seem to get. And so it's really weird that they cast this, I think slightly odd-looking kid to then have another voice. It's very weird. I don't know why they did that.
No.
Don't know why.
I didn't actually realize that he was overdubbed the whole time. That's bizarre.
Yeah, I only found this out when I was checking whether or not my copy of... okay, so here's what happened. When I started watching this, I watched this last Halloween. And so I wasn't really keen to watch it again, because in adult years, that feels as if I've just watched it. But in my brain years, of course, I couldn't remember a single thing about it. So when I sat down to watch it, I was quite intrigued by the fact that Disney Plus has in its extras a sort of extra version of the film where they flash up trivia and storyboards as the film goes on. So I started by watching that. I aborted this moments into the film because I couldn't possibly concentrate on what was going on, and also the picture quality isn't very good, and also I was sure the sound was out of sync. But no, it just turns out that they just haven't overdubbed him very well, and that's just what it looks like.
Okay,
but there's one close up of that boy early on, and it's not quite in sync with the voice. So
bewildering decision.
Yeah, but I think it was from that early trivia that I found out that yes, he's always a voiceover of Jason Marsden.
The fact they even released such a thing on Disney Plus, like this trivia track. Is, I think, speaks to the fact that, this is a film people take seriously. Now. It's not just a kind of, you would just 100% expect this to be I don't know, Can of Worms or whatever. Where it's just one of those films that Disney made in the 90s. It's just, no, everyone just loves this one.
Yeah, this is a beloved film, and a lot of people will tell you that the witches are good. So they're interesting people. I'd like to sit down with them.
An interesting comment here.
Sorry, everyone.
from Wangleberry.
Hey, hello, Wangleberry.
Is that the one you just had on the podcast? I can't remember from usernames.
Yes.
Yeah. So she was the one who grew up in a very Christian household where they weren't ever allowed to do anything fun, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because she's just said, weirdly, this was a film we were actually allowed to watch when she was a kid.
Interesting.
Which is very odd and surprising to me, because...
I'm sorry, I just ought to edit that. I suppose I don't actually know if it was a Christian household. I don't know if it was a very religious household. That's all I know. But yeah,
Sure,
but
yeah. I don't want to make assumptions.
Yes.
But yes, based on... Because she said, like, this is Wangleberry, by the way, to give you context. So I think she meant that within the context of what we know about her. It's like, this does seem a very satanic film in that regard.
It's an odd choice. I'll certainly say that.
Yeah. It's like it's certainly an odd choice to be like, you are not allowed to watch or do anything else except not watching Hocus Pocus. This film about these lovable Satan worshippers.
Sorry, I've just tabbed into the chat because Johanna's reminded me it existed, and I just want to say hi to everyone. Wangleberry's here. Hello, Tom McGrath's here. Hello, Fingers is here, and Matek04 has just come to say hi. So hi. Okay, that's politeness out of the way. Hi, Chris Williams, and various things.
Various things. Everyone. A big supporter of ours.
The fan of Kirby. Emojo9 hello, and Beluga Tunes. Hello to everybody. Let's move on.
Hello, everybody. We will be interacting with you in no further ways after this.
Yes.
No, we will.
No, I'll be getting distracted by reading your chat and will not listen to Jahan properly.
the usual, then.
Yes. Except this time it won't be Twitter. Or will it?
So,
you can't tell.
Anyway,
I might be on Twitter now.
You might be, but please don't be.
No.
We have things to discuss about Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus.
So, this film, then, like, I didn't see it in 1993. I'm sure I had seen it in chunks or bits and pieces, maybe even the whole way through, on TV at some point. And I remembered it being all right, but not like nothing I could actually remember anyway.
No, that's my assessment of the film. If you wanted to boil it down, yeah.
I mean, but like watching it back, it's definitely different from how I remembered it a little bit. Like,
one thing is that you've said on this podcast before was that you had the impression it was quite scary.
Scary is too strong a word for what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But I thought it was tonally more like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a child scary film.
Beetlejuice? Does that count as child? It's not exactly a child film, but it's child scary, isn't it?
Ish. Honestly, this is an interesting point to launch into. Oh, wait. Before
Turns out it isn't.
Just
Sorry, I'm getting told here. No, it isn't.
No, it's not. I'm just hearing now. No. Wangleberry was saying that, yes, very Christian household. Possibly it was something to do with the Puritans being portrayed positively. Who knows what the rules were. So, yeah. No, the interesting point that I wanted to go into is the fact that, like, and look, I can't claim full authorship for this.
Right.
This is a point of analysis that I took from the very interesting box office analyst Scott Mendelson, who I read and retweet a lot of, because he's very good. He's a very good commentator on not just box office stuff, but also just like, the business of film and like the way audiences respond to things and the way that like kind of demographic responses to particular films kind of affect their popularity and that kind of thing. It's good if you want like some interesting educated insights into the way audiences respond to film and the way that then affects the industry and the production of that art. But he was making the good point that possibly one of the reasons that Hocus Pocus does have this level of kind of generational pull is because it is a type of film for an audience that doesn't... No, the audience still exists, but the type of film catering to that audience doesn't really exist in the same way.
Oh.
Yes,
I agree with that, yeah.
It's the sort of... the scary film that is a kid's film also.
Yeah.
It is definitely a kid's film.
Yeah.
Because this is one thing that's like changed a lot about the industry in the last 10 years or so. you touched on it briefly in, I don't remember which episode it was. It was a previous episode where you were kind of lamenting the fact that you didn't feel like kids or family films were as wholesome as they used to be in a lot of ways. Like you specifically raised the point of like you didn't like the fact that Mewling Quim is a line from one of the most popular family movies of the current day. That's kind of because of the way that a lot of the kind of like categories we used to have kind of congealed into all one big category that's just sold as a big block.
Yeah.
So like, the Avengers, it's for all the family, quote unquote. But there used to be a much clearer distinction between, okay, so you got your films for kids, and then you've got your films for like teenagers. Something like Avengers would fit much more into that kind of Indiana Jones bracket, which was like, maybe you watch that between the ages of like 12 and 20 or something, and you're not really expected that much to watch it below that age. But it's also not really for people older than 20.
Yeah.
And then, you'd get like adult films, you'd get like, adult dramas and thrillers and all that kind of stuff. And then, going up and up and up into sort of like prestige Oscar movies and art house films and all that. So in the last 10 years or so, you've seen this real kind of flattening out of that as studios have pursued this idea. Well, if we're going to make a film that on any kind of scale, we want it to be a film that literally everyone goes to see.
Yeah.
So if we're going to spend more than like $50 million, it has to be for literally everyone.
Yeah.
It has to be for children, teenagers, young people, basically anyone below the age of 50. And then everyone over the age of 50, we can do some Oscar movies for them. So it's like there's three categories of film these days. There's the Oscar movies that they release in like December, January, February. Then there's the film for literal small children.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the films are now just for everyone. And that includes films that would in the past have been for teenagers. It includes films that in the past would have been, honestly, for old, like 18-plus-year-olds. So that's why you get a situation now where you're getting sort of like Terminator and Die Hard movies.
Yeah.
That are kind of made for the same age as are expected to go and see Batman.
Yeah.
And it's just a way that the market's changed, in a way that like as various things has pointed out, the 4-quadrant blockbuster that used, like the thing that caters to every audience, that used to be like, oh wow, that's a rare thing that comes along every now and then, like something that really appeal to everybody and make huge bank, because normally there would be a film for each of those 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you're spending any money at all, it's because you're trying to make a 4-quadrant blockbuster.
Yeah.
And so a film like Hocus Pocus, you don't really get films like this now, because this is not a film for young children. No. I do think this would be too scary for young children, but it's also not something that is in any sense attempting to appeal to anyone older than 16 to 18, maybe at the oldest. Because it's a weird one. Because it's, like I say, it's definitely not for small children. Not only insofar as that, it sort of tries to be scary a little bit, but it's also a film that like it's weirdly frank about its allusions to sex.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I found the film to be divided right down the middle between like the sort of film that the description you're giving conjures up in the mind, where like there are various different levels of things going on. There are some adult references, but mostly it's a kids' adventure film, and everyone in it is quite engaging, and that's that film is in this film, and I really enjoyed that film. And then there's the Three Witches, and the reason I separate them off is that they are ostensibly the source of the spooky in this. They're supposedly the scary thing, but they're more like the three interminable ghosts in the Casper movie, or like they're just doing irritating, stupid stuff all the time, and doing and the level on which they pit themselves as the threat is like it reminds me of when me and my little brother would play at being witches. So it's all like, I'll get you, and then and when I do, you won't like the thing I do, and without any actual threat, without actually knowing what it is. There's just a lot of like, I'm coming towards you. Oh, and
Dave, this is getting a bit scary.
And so when we were talking about, me and Jahan were talking through the door at each other a few weeks ago about like, is it scary or not? I said that my impression that I got was it was about as scary as the witch is in The Worst Witch movie, the bad witch is in that, which is exactly the same thing. Again, they just kind of go ooh towards the camera, but in that film they go as far as to have a fisheye lens for them to go ooh into like that. And which by the way I'm saying is less scary, because it's more they're leaning into how silly it is as well. So maybe this is as an adult who didn't grow up with the film, I found them to be a big problem, because the rest of the film I found believable and engaging, and pleasant to watch. On a number of different levels, like the child brain me watching it for an adventure film for kids, the adult brain me getting all the grown-up jokes and the sex jokes and things. That all worked, and that I thought balance was fine, and then it was all just ruined whenever those three came on screen. For me, I apologize.
Interestingly, it is a film that the producer came up with the idea for it initially, like, based on a story he'd come up with for his daughter when he saw a black cat walking.
Yes, the trivia version of the film opens with him saying that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay,
there's actual added film bits and everything.
Oh, okay.
It might be quite interesting to watch, but I'm not going to.
That's verifiable then. Okay. And it started life as a script that was bought by Disney, and it was scarier. It was darker and scarier initially. The protagonists were planned to be 12-year-olds, and it was pitched to Amblin, like Spielberg's company, and he didn't want to do it because at that time, like, Disney and Amblin were seen as competitors in the market, so he didn't want to. But if those streams.
But if it wasn't a Disney film yet, why was it a problem?
No, it had been bought by Disney.
Oh, right. Oh, so Disney wanted Amblin to make a film for them.
Kinda, yeah, but they didn't want to co-produce it for that reason. And then after that, that's when the rewrites happened to make it more comedic and turn the two of the heroes into teenagers, which obviously diffuses a lot of the fear and the tension.
But then ages down the third child to add a
little 8-year-old Thora Birch.
But she was great in this.
Isn't I mean, she's just a generally very good actor. But
but you wouldn't expect her to be, as a small child, a really good actor.
She was a child star first, before she then became a teenage star and then a star of reputable movies.
Well, she deserves to be. She's great in it. We'll do a cast run through in a minute, but like, she's really good in this.
But the thing that's interesting about this is that, like, even though they have aged down the tone of it and they've made it more comedic, there are aspects of it that are still that still feel like they're of a thought process that was aimed at more of a Gremlins-y type audience.
Yeah.
And to me, what the biggest marker of that is the fact that, like, the entire plot really revolves around very, like, constant allusions to, but never explanations of, the fact that our teenage protagonist is a virgin.
Yeah, this film is obsessed with whether or not he's a virgin. Sometimes it's mocking him with it. Sometimes it's an important plot point. I was kind of gratifying to see that it never went too deep into it. Nobody was like having a go at him for it. There wasn't an annoying, drawn out sequence where he was pretending not to be or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
It just kept dropping it as a piece of information, as if the audience
Yeah.
would be interested to know that he's a virgin.
I mean, it's not. To me, it felt less that it was fixated on it, but it was more that it was like it was such a key foundation stone of how the entire plot functions.
Yeah.
That like, oh, this magic spell will only
Yeah.
work if a virgin does it or whatever. Which fine, that works in the kind of like old world magic
Yeah.
sort of sense, but it doesn't ever. It doesn't ever take the time. It doesn't ever take a moment to explain to the audience what that means.
What that is. Yeah, no.
What that is.
And it stands out.
It's taking it as read that you know.
Yeah, and it stands out even more by the fact that it's also taken as read that 8-year-old Thora Birch knows what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. And that she knows what it means enough that she'll be among the people constantly making
going
reference.
on about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? That strikes it, puts it demographically in a really, really, really specific place. It's like you're old enough to know what sex is, but you're not old enough to not want to watch Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, which I'm thinking is like 10 to 10 and a half.
Surely you have to put it a bit, like, given the nature of the protagonist, I think you have to put it up to at least as old as they're supposed to be.
But that's the interesting thing. Yeah, no, I don't quite agree with that because well, so start at 10, right? Because it's a children's film and it's 1993, and that I don't know, that just strikes me as the sort of age that might want to watch a children's film, right? Go up, 11, 12. I think when you hit about 13, that's as far as you can go and watch those Three Witches, and not be like, oh, this isn't for me.
I don't know.
And that's why I call it a clash. That's why I think the fact that you've got this, if those three particular witches weren't in it and three other witches were in it, I'd completely agree. This goes up to about 15, 16. But because those three witches, who are like preschool television witches, they are like, they're like Pigeon Street witches. It's ridiculous how babyish they are. That, in this film, means that you have two different films going on that are, I think, exclusive to two separate audiences. I don't think the audience that would enjoy The Witches on the fullest level would have any idea what's going on or in any way, like, identify with the teenage protagonist, and vice versa.
I don't know. I think you're overestimating the maturity of 14 to 16-year-olds.
Maybe. No, not the maturity. It's not maturity. It's embarrassment level. It's the fact that you, and I didn't do this, so I am just extrapolating based on the fact, this is the most recent example of this that I'm aware of. We just recorded yesterday an episode of Sonic, which was still had the free gift on the cover. And the reason it still had the free gift on the cover of the physical copy I've got here is because that was as far as Abby could bear going, and still admit that even though she was totally into Sonic, she was 12 now, so no. And she very quickly got back on the bandwagon, but that's the reason she never took the free gift off, never played with the cards that came with it. No, too old now. There's shame now. There's shame now. And that is the level that I'm coming at this with. I think that there's a point at which you'd go like, oh, God. And in response to these witches. And that's...
So for the exact same reasons that the main character of the film is embarrassed about going and doing Halloween things with his kid sister.
Yes.
That's the same reason that exact person in the audience of Hocus Pocus would not stomach the witches.
So, Omri Katz is the main character in this. He's the guy from Erie, Indiana, and in both of those things, he presents as a really cool dude, except in this, a really grumpy Mardy one, right?
Yeah.
And
also, a cool dude in a very, very down the line 90s Disney version of what a cool teenager does.
Exactly. Yeah. I get the impression that Omri himself is quite a cool dude. And I think that he would not want to watch this film because of those three witches.
I am not sure. I'm not sure. And Wangleberry makes the point that, like, well, she disagrees, I think, saying, think about the American audience. I wonder if my childhood was a more representative example of levels of tolerance. I think Americans might accept this more.
What do we mean here when we say
the witch
Americans?
performance, like like I wonder if American kids might watch these witches and.
But what key difference between us and Americans are we focusing on here? Is it that they like stupid stuff?
Well, maybe it's to do with the flavor of stupid thing.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if you would be more accepting of what they were doing here, if they were British actors doing it in a sort of a panto style. Yeah. Rather than American actors doing it in
a really stupid way, yeah.
In a vaudeville style.
To be clear, I'm mostly joking all the way through this. Like they were fine. But the reason I'm joking about it is that I didn't like them, but I completely accept that normal people would. Yeah, possibly. I'll tell you what, the comparison that I made when I was talking to Abby about it, who does like it, by the way, and did grow up with it and does remember. Like,
oh, right. Okay, I didn't know that.
She came out of it this time going like, nah, that wasn't so good. But that could be because she knew that we were going to discuss it in a serious Disness sort of way. Last year when we watched it, we both quite enjoyed it. Because that was just for fun. The comparison that I made is that, so by chance, I happen, as a whatever age I was, 13-year-old, to have enjoyed The Mask, the film The Mask.
Sure, yeah.
And it compares to this film because that is a film of two sides. You've got a relatively normal sort of film about people doing things. And on top of that, you've got, sometimes in comes this madcap cartoon character. Yeah. As it just so happens, all the choices Jim Carrey makes in that film to be that madcap character, I understood why he made those choices, what the meta context of them was, and I got them all, and I liked them, and I found it funny and entertaining. Our Serious Disness youth correspondent, who wasn't there at the time, didn't, and doesn't get it, and doesn't and sees that film the way I see this film. And I think we've got a similar situation. I think if you just are the wrong age and don't get it, then you don't. It's not whether it's good or bad. It's whether your life experiences connect up with the choices these actors are making or not.
Whether it's possible for you to dial into their level or whatever.
So when I saw The Mask, I thought that all the choices he was making were like innovative comedy choices that were a new way of behaving on screen, but which I got why they all made sense. Whereas watching these witches, the life experience I connect to with that is, me and my brother when we're 7 and 10 years old, being bad at pretending to be witches. It's the same performance, and I've got the receipts, and I can send you the recording. And so, as I'm watching them, I'm going like, well, then this is rubbish then, because a literal child can do this. But presumably, those performers, they were responding to whatever we, the literal children, were responding to, and they were doing that. And so, had we watched it at that age, we would have connected to all their choices, and it's just a question of I just didn't watch it at the right time, that's all.
Yeah, I do wonder about that.
So that's my comparison that sort of explains it.
My reaction to them was like 100%, they undercut any sense of threat to the film. Even though, like, what they're doing is actually quite threatening.
Yeah, the actual actions,
Kind of especially by one of these film standards.
Yeah.
There's nothing actually cuddly about them. Like, there's nothing... This isn't an Addams Family situation. No. It's not a Beetlejuice situation where they're just like... they're supernatural characters, but they're just like you and me in a sense.
Yeah.
That kind of, like where it's like, it's a Dracula, but he's gotta pay his taxes, or whatever.
Bram Stoker's Draxes coming soon.
But it's not that kind of thing. It's like, no, these are actually witches. In the old sense, they're acting quite goofy or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, when you boil down to it, they're horrible. They're like horrible villains in all the ways that Halloween witches are supposed to be horrible villains. They want to abduct a load of children. They want to, live forever. They will torture and torment people with kind of horrible spells. They literally worship and have formed a personal relationship and pact with actual literal Satan. Yeah, they're bad. They actually are bad. They're not a joke, but they're played in a very goofy way.
It's like if you were watching I'm gonna say something really stupid, but I'm gonna plow on because we're live. It's like if you were watching a hard-hitting crime drama, but the murderers were Bulk and Skull. And they've done murders, right?
Yeah.
Actual murders, but they're Bulk and Skull, and they act like Bulk and Skull. So on the way to the murder, they're ending up with pies in their face. Yeah. Everyone's laughing at them. That stuff.
It's got Bulk and Skull's theme.
Yeah, the theme tune always plays while they're murdering, but not even in a way that comes off as like ironic placement of that music over a murder. It's just ineffectual and rubbish.
I'm just again, I'll come back to Bulk and Skull later.
I think so. What they are is you've got the one, because if you sort of vaguely remember the film or haven't seen the films, I hadn't. It looks like a trio of witches who are going to do the my pretty type stuff. A bit like the two to me that I think would have been referenced here are, of course, the Wicked Witch, the Western Wizard of Oz, and then probably Witchy Poo from Puffin Stuff, who's got quite a cultural legacy over in America and in my personal house because I happen to have it on video. Which was the other big witch character. I'm sure there are others, but they're doing that act, that I'm a witch type stuff. But that ain't what it is. Actually, what you've got Bette Midler is doing a sort of, she just overpronounces everything. That's her act. Yeah. Then you've got the one whose act is, I'm pulling a face with a bit of my mouth and repeating the last syllable of everything that the Bette Midler one says.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Sarah Jessica Parker one, who's just sort of like flighty and happy, usually.
Like an airhead, but like a malign airhead.
Yeah. And those are each such a small thing. I really think you could develop those further than they did to make them better. I just don't think they're good enough. I don't think that's enough to carry the whole film.
Like,
even Bulk and Skull had more nuance than that.
I'm comparing them. My points of comparison with these characters, the ones that immediately come to my mind, is on the one hand that you've got like, and this isn't directly like comparable, but I think of Angelica Houston in The Witches. Say,
yeah. Now I haven't seen that recently enough to remember the performance very well, but I remember it as being quite good.
Yeah, it's definitely very OTT, and it's very kind of like scenery chewing.
Yeah,
but not in and like theatrical and ridiculous. It is a ridiculous performance, but not in a way that undercuts the threat.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm thinking of is a more recent example. Have you seen Stardust?
No.
The Matthew Vaughn fantasy movie. I like that film quite a bit, and there are witch villains in that.
I'm not 100% convinced by the bloke they've got to play Bowie in it, but I'll give it a chance.
God, I was trying to block out the fact that I'd seen that trailer.
Why would you name a film after an already famous film? Why use the same name as a famous film? Why, like, if Bowie had made a song called Jaws, you wouldn't call it Jaws, would you?
Oh, look, there's a lot of why questions about what I've seen about that film. That's a different podcast.
Yeah.
It isn't ours.
So... No, I'm not even interested. Let alone have a podcast on which to talk about it. So what about the actual film Stardust?
Stardust, yeah, that has witch villains.
Right.
The lead, one of whom is Michelle Pfeiffer.
I can see that working.
They're doing a lot of what they do in Hocus Pocus in Stardust. It's kind of the same dynamic of like, it's a coven of witches. There's, like one of whom is the big star out of them and is the lead witch. She's obviously the brains of the operation. they're backbitey, they're bickering, they're like trying to do weird things so they can reclaim their youth. It's that same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they have that same kind of vampy, campy sort of vibe to them. But in that film, there'll be many moments where, okay, right, mask drops now. No, we're horrible, you know?
Yes,
like,
yes, this film could have really done with that.
Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, okay, all right, fine, you know, we'll mess around and we'll do our weird thing, but like, oh, now you've pissed me off.
Yeah.
And now you're going to see that no, I'm to be taken seriously, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm a genuinely awful villain. And
I don't know. I suppose it's like, you know, I could certainly be accused of being wrong to think that a film like this needed the villains to suddenly be horrible. But the problem is that the what they're professing to be trying to do doesn't the bad things that you described that mean that they are horrible villains doesn't match up with the fact that on screen they're the kind of villains that if you tell them they're dying, they'll do it.
Yeah. Even if what you've done is spray some water on them and or shine a car headlight on them.
Yeah.
Way after the point that they already know what a car headlight is.
And they'll still go like, oh, we're dying. Oh, and then ages later they're like, oh, he tricked us. And it's... Oh, they annoyed me so... They reminded me of nothing so much as the stupid fairies from Maleficent. It was that sort of performance to me. And in that, you have Imelda Staunton, who, when they turn human, we've covered this on another episode, just stands out as an inappropriately good actor. Like, she's being so good at acting in that bit that it's wrong for what they're trying to do, which is a bad film. But or at least the fairies bits are stupid and bad. In this, I didn't get that off. Oh, I can't remember her name. The main one, the middle one. The one who stands in the middle being the big Broadway diva one in this. Come on, what's her name? What?
Bette Midler?
Yes. I didn't find her...
Remember, she's the one in the middle. That's why she's called that.
Yeah, that's... Jahan, that is literally why I came up with that, because earlier I'd thought that. Oh, she stands in the middle. Okay. She's capable of more than what she gave in this. She is a Broadway diva style person. I don't know much about who she is. I know her from this and like Oliver and Company. Like she was the one in that, right?
She was in that, yeah.
Yeah, so I personally don't have the experience of her, but
She's sang Wind Beneath My Wings.
Okay, right. Yeah. But I understand that she's that sort of person, a sort of big personality. She can stand on a stage and take over that stage type person.
Yeah, and that sort of Barbara Streisand.
Yeah. Who used to be in, like, musicals and things, I think.
Yeah.
And in this, what we get is someone who's... Anyone could do it. Give me more. There's a whole bit where she gets to do a song, and she chooses to do it in a voice that's like someone who, like, can't sing would do to do an impression of someone who can sing. And it's like, but I know you can sing.
You're literally Bette Midler.
Yeah, don't do the joke that it would be funny if you could sing. You can. But that's a separate thing. I have hang-ups about how musicals are done anyway.
Sure, I get that.
In a minute, sorry to everyone about my grumpiness about this, because soon I'll start going off about the stuff that I thought was great in this film. There's loads of it I really liked. Carry on.
Well, I'm going to... and I'll defend them on quite a lot of levels as well. I mean, what they're saying in the chat is, Tom McGrath says, the whole film kind of feels like whatever happens, everyone will be all right.
Yeah.
Like when they just leave those two teenagers in cages, haha, which I thought was reprehensible, I must say.
Yeah.
I really thought that did not reflect well on the main character at all.
No.
The fact that he just left those two guys in cages.
Yeah.
But again, I'll come back to them.
Yeah.
And then like he said, also you get the impression everyone will take a bow at the end of a pantomime. Pantomime was a big touch point for me mentally with it. He also says it feels very much like a Muppet movie, and
not one of the very good ones.
Maybe not one of the very good ones, but I think I clicked with them on that level. partly just because, I can appreciate it when I'm just seeing some performers kind of just having a bit of a laugh with something. Like there's always there's a certain energy that comes off it when it feels like they're having a laugh, but it's not. I don't feel like any of them were being self-indulgent. Like, I thought they were all just being like, what's really gonna be funny? Like, what's really gonna what are kids going to be like? Oh, this character's funny, but I'm a bit scared of them, and I'll just really, I'll really go for because they're all really going for it, and I just sort of felt. So yeah, on that level, I felt the effort, and yeah, it may be in good and bad ways. But the other thing, I think I was viewing it in a context where I wish some of Disney's more recent live action movies with their villains had some of this kind of energy of throwing themselves into it. Because, there was there was a lot about these performances that just made me reflect on the fact that, I think there should be a big place in children's entertainment for, this kind of panto villain type performance. I like seeing it. Like, even the less successful examples, I think it belongs to a proud tradition that I felt like a lot of their recent movies they've shied away from, and don't shy away from this.
Yeah.
Because this, whether you like their execution of it or not, they are very much living up to the spirit of what, all of them are taking seriously the idea of we're playing Disney villains. We're playing Disney villains, and we know what that means. We've got a mark to hit. We've got we want not. This is me speaking as Bette Midler. I'm not claiming to be Bette Midler, but Bette Midler, look back on many decades of Disney villains, and I'm going to look at them and be like, yeah, I want to be one of them. Like, I'm not above them. I want to just do. Yeah. I want to be the next.
Yeah, I completely respect the part of it that I totally respect is that Bette Midler, who is this Broadway diva type, was prepared to be this stupid.
Yes, exactly. This stupid in that. Yeah, because she wants to be the next Gaston or whatever, or the next Jafar. I mean, I suppose. Yeah, no, they'll have seen Jafar by that time. Yeah, and it's. I guess I'm putting this in the context of the fact that, the last, we're on a podcast where we've been talking about a lot of these live action remakes where they've just shied away from this style of thing completely.
Yeah.
And very frequently replaced it with nothing.
Yeah.
With nothing.
Yeah.
I would have loved the Jafar in the Guy Ritchie Aladdin movie to be Bette Midlering it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or any of the villains in Mulan or whatever. Come on, give us something it doesn't have to be this exactly, but give us something like this. And I was just trying to think, is this a thing that's died? Is a style that's died? And I came to the conclusion, no, it hasn't died. People still do this kind of thing, and that's why the Power Rangers reboot movie came to my mind.
Yeah.
Because Elizabeth Banks in that.
Yeah.
I don't think she's really playing Rita Repulsa in the traditional sense, but she's definitely doing a performance of this type.
Yes.
Where it's just you know what? I am sod everything that anyone has ever told me about traditional restraints of acting.
Yes.
I'm one of those kids movie baddies now. I'm just gonna go mental. And I always do like it. I think I think you can actually, if you get it right, you can get to quite a high level with it. For me, the high watermark of how to do a villain like this, from live action in my recent memory, that just the hamming it up type villain, is Jeffrey Rush in the first Pirates movie.
Yeah.
I rewatched all of those recently.
Oh, and gosh, what would you do that for?
just out of interest, I still think the first three are all genuinely interesting movies, and then the fourth one is one of the worst things anyone has ever made.
Oh
And
wow!
then the fifth one is just
Fifth
everyone's
one.
everyone's just tired at that point. It's just like, come on, like it's not undignified, but everyone's just like, come, please let me die. But like the first three, and they're relevant to hell. Look, I wouldn't mind covering the Pirate series on here at some point
Yeah.
because those are very Disney films, and like first three genuinely interesting works of creativity, and Jeffrey Rush in that first one, he absolutely finds the line between how to be a villain who is this kind of Bette Midler. Like, this is not a real person.
Yeah.
I am dialing everything up to 10 billion. Like, in that, like, think about the challenge that Jeffrey Rush has in that part. It's like, I'm not playing a revisionist pirate. I'm playing the pirate.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you've ever thought about pirates, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like, there is a Death Star exhaust port size target to hit with that. Everything around it, you're gonna look like you're like a complete idiot. But if you bullseye it like he did, it's like, wow, like, look at this guy. This guy is the pirate. Like, it feels like every other pirate has spun off this guy. And because he does that, he managed to embed himself in the reality of that world whilst also being this panto character. It's an absolutely incredibly balanced performance. And I don't think everyone can hit that sort of level.
No.
Tom McGrath's saying Johnny Depp also hit that bullseye, right? No, Johnny Depp was doing something different to my mind. Johnny Depp is doing a revisionist take. He gets to do something offbeat and wild and wacky and weird. Like, yes, it definitely is a performance that takes chances, but it's not just being a panto character. It's, it's doing it's inventing your own brand new kind of caricature.
I was actually going to say that, Jeffrey Rush needed to do that much of a archetypal pirate, essentially as a balance for how weird and out there the Johnny Depp pirate, which of course now has become its own pirate archetype.
Yeah, exactly.
But
to the
it kind
point
of
of tiredness. But
if while we're comparing to pirates, by the way, in particular the bit where the Bette Midler one started doing a spiel about, oh right, that's it, I've had enough, I'm going to end it all, goodbye world, goodbye moon, goodbye this and that. I suddenly realised that there is some hook in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and
that's a skit from the film Hook, and I think slightly cynically airlifted into this film. But the performances are similar in ways.
Yeah, and I know I've rambled on this a little bit, but it's like, do you see what I mean when I'm saying that, like, there's absolutely a place in a film like this for someone to just take a cartoon performance and just try and hit it. And I agree with you. I don't think they all hit it quite. I don't think any of them hit the nail direct on the head. Like not even to the degree that, like, I don't know, Kate Blanchett did in Cinderella, say. Because that's another example of a recent one where, someone has tried to go. She tried to nuance it a little bit and succeeded because she's Kate Blanchett. But like, it's sometimes just play a stereotype, and they are all playing stereotypes, and it's a stereotype that I like. I like to me, there's always a certain comforting kick that you get from seeing a villain who has two lackeys and whose relationship with those lackeys is, you idiots, go get them. It's like, look, I like that.
Yeah.
I just like that. It's very Long John Baldry, Dr. Robotnik. It's very like, and I don't want that I don't want that style of villain to ever pass that just pass into uncoolness. Like to
Yeah.
pass, we need to that teenage embarrassment that you were talking
Yeah.
about these kind of performances. I like that Midler and et al. Will just like sod it.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if they're embarrassed? Who cares if everyone's embarrassed? This is an inherently stupid concept, but it's so important that we keep this type of villain alive. The kind that, yeah, we're going to bulldoze through our own embarrassment and the audience's embarrassment, and we're just going to stick it out. And I respect that. I respect that. And I enjoyed it on those terms, even though I understand the point you're making about, the execution it's not all it could be.
I just found it very weak and aggravating, but I agree with that point. I would like to. I wish it had been done more to my satisfaction, but yes.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. Yeah, that you're always going to be able to have disagreements about it, but I absolutely 100% back the intent of it, and I think it's something that Disney need to remember. There's a reason. Like, I think they've forgotten recently, kind of across the board, about because they've been so interested recently in really kind of curating and being very careful about and paying a lot of attention to the legacy of Disney princesses and Disney heroines and this idea of the Disney heroine, the Disney princesses are an important cultural canon that we need to be, every time we add a new character to that pantheon, we're going to think really carefully about what it means. We're going to think really carefully about what it represents, what it adds to the overall, that overall collected work of these iconic heroines we have over the years. But they seem to have forgotten lately that, but the Disney villains are also a pantheon like that.
Yeah.
They're also hang on. I need to collect my groceries.
Aha!
Hold on a second.
Okay, I'll just cover for you.
Kill time.
Okay. Johannes gets those boxes of all of your food for the week delivered, and we knew that whatever time we scheduled this for is when they would decide randomly to bring it today, and so we decided not to take that into account, and that's what's going on here. So again, apologies to anyone who's a big lover of this film. I am into some stupid films because I watched them when I was 11 and stuff. So, or younger, or older. So I know what it is like to hear people disparaging things that I love, and how frustrating that is. And I apologize. I am going to start talking about the things I liked about this film as soon as we can get off the topic of the witches, which I loathed in this film. I'm sorry, but I did. I'm sure as a child that I would not have, or would I? Because remember that I made the active decision not to go and see this film, in as much as that was in my control rather than my parents. And that would have been based on having seen The Witches. Hello. He's very sensibly gelling his hands there as a result of having done that transaction. Very sensible.
I am back.
Hello. And when I was covering, I was just saying to them that, I was apologising for my naysaying of the witches and how I didn't like them. But I was pointing out that one of the things that I want to mention is that I did see clips of this. I remember watching, the bit where they come back to life on things like Disney Time or movies, games, and videos or whatever. And so it will have been because of those three witches that I chose not to see the film. So I don't think I liked them even then. But by the opposite token, you're talking about this kind of villain. The positive side is that they will have been 100% of the reason anyone did choose to go and see the film was to see these three villains that they would have seen clips of and enjoyed. So,
and it's why anyone remembers it.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I agree. I like the stuff that isn't them too. But that's not why anyone is still watching this film.
Indeed, exactly. I'm just going to nip slightly off camera to heat up my tea, but I'll still, Jahan knows this is for listeners, I can still hear him because I'm literally just over there. I'm going to mute my mic and turn the speakers on. You may see me go off to get Abby's drink and heat that up just because I'm being nice, but I can still hear. So Jahan, take it away.
Yes. I'm just going to see the comments in the meantime. Blah. Yes, Isaac C. Jones. We are not talking about that, The Witches. We are talking about a different set of witches. Well, I mean, we did talk about that, The Witches, but we're talking about witches as a more general concept. Tom McGrath. Yes, we were both happy to watch this film starring Thora Birch. She is apparently very good. Like just at all ages. I had, and I'll probably say this to Dave again when he gets back, I had got the timeline of this film completely wrong. So when it said in the credits that Thora Birch was going to be in it, I was like, oh, right, okay. She's probably going to be playing some kind of like, I don't know, like bookish, gothy type girl character who's maybe the other, maybe the love interest of this main kid. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, the timing of that doesn't work out at all. And then she turns up as a literal child. And yeah, she's apparently just been a good actor forever, probably from birth. And yeah, very, very happy with her, although we will undoubtedly go over this again when Dave is ready to talk. I don't know.
I'm sort of nearly ready to talk now. I'm just waiting for the microwave, you know. I was wrong, by the way. When I went in there to get a drink, I stopped being able to hear you because actually a whole conversation had to start about some technical issues Abby was having in the other room. So, missed that. Sorry, but...
That's fine. I was talking to the audience, not you.
Cool. But it sounds like we're about to start talking about the people in it and how they were good and stuff. There it is.
There it is. Dave is a person who is frequently running around reheating his own tea.
Right. Back on with it. Sorry about that, everybody, but I don't care what you think. On that topic.
It's rarely our show, so you guys are going to have to just deal with it.
Yeah. I can do whatever I want. I'm the Prince of Darkness.
Yes. Just to finish the point that I was making before I dashed off my groceries, I was just saying about what I perceive to be the relative lack of care they put into curating their library of villains compared to their library of heroes, especially recently. Like, I just feel that when they remake Aladdin or Mulan or whatever, they'll put so much stock, like, through the press and through, like, people talking about it, being like, oh, yeah, it was, we know, like, Jasmine's a very, very important character, and it was very important to find the exact, then they'll get Naomi Scott to come out and be like, oh, yeah, Princess Jasmine, this is a character that really meant so, like, we really need to take care, or Mulan. But, like, it just sort of feels like, yeah, but Jafar? Yeah, we'll just get some guy to play him, whatever. Who's really thinking about it? The villain from Mulan? You don't even remember what his name is. Who cares? And it's like...
They've got a point with that one, though.
They do have a point, but
yeah.
But this kind of cuts across everything they've been doing recently. Frankly, I think it's cutting through to their, even their more recent animated movies. Like, recently, they've really kind of... They're on a bit of a run recently of, like, twist villains.
Yeah.
Like, people who you don't even know is the villain until, like, the last third of the film.
Yeah.
And it's like, often that makes for like a good surprise or like a good bit of plot. And, like in Frozen or like in Zootopia, say, the true villain doesn't really show their face until quite late in the game or whatever. But it does mean that, like, but you don't then really go back and add that character to the great pantheon of Disney villains, do you? Because they weren't really even a villain for most of the time.
I don't know how true this is, but we might see a change to that coming up sometime soon. Because I recently heard that everything that you have just perfectly described what was an actual official policy of John Lasseter, which is no more Disney villains, and that all the villains had to be like twist villains or emerging villains or down to earth villains. I don't know why he had that idea.
Or no villain like Moana, as John McGrath said.
No, that's a great example, and it's one of the ones that's usually brought up. Like that's the I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. I don't know if that was a real thing. It's just something I've heard. I haven't sourced it, but it's something that people on other Disney things have said with some amount of confidence. And
could be true, because Pixar don't really do villains.
Well, that's
either.
the thing, and it does line up, doesn't it? If you look at the time when he came in, it's around then that they stopped having Disney, but complicated by the fact that Tangled definitely had one.
Yeah,
but
it did.
Also,
but that was 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, but it was in his tenure, though.
Sure. Yeah.
But tempered by the fact that, as we pointed out at the time, even she was like the closest to a classic Disney villain, but also she had roots in a reality that is a thing that's not a parody and that really does happen, and she was just an exaggeration of that.
Which is fine.
Which is and it was good. That was a good one. Yeah. But yeah, that's the one complication that I can see to the theory that this is a John Lasseter, policy
edict.
Yeah, and with him out the window, maybe we'll go back to having some Disney film, but we obviously haven't done yet, and
no,
complicated by the timing of it, the fact that films take a while to develop, and now this year, so who knows when we'll eventually see a change to that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Well, let's see what happens with that Raya and the Last Dragon, if that has a villain or not.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
I'd like it to, because if it was like a thing that was company policy headed up by the head creatives. It's like, look, sure, that paid off in a lot of ways. Like, they made some great films over the last few years, and it was led by a creative team who had their own experience of making a lot of really great films. But honestly, it's something that it's a thing that's sort of special about Disney movies. Like, and it's a way it's a thing that differentiates Disney movies from Pixar movies. Because you know what? Yeah, look, there are some compelling Disney villains. There are some compelling villains in Pixar movies, but Pixar villains isn't really a thing, is it? Disney villains is a thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want that thing to go away. And look, sure, there have been some half decent villains in the last 10 years worth of movies, but it doesn't ever feel like they're really going out of their way to create the next Scar. In that sense, to create the next iconic villain.
Yeah.
And I want them to. I want them to. That's such a big fun part of like the Disney tradition. And to circle back to Hocus Pocus, I do think they would, in the way they played those roles, they are trying to pay tribute to that. They're trying to embody that. Yeah, we can disagree over whether they were successful in it, but like, I like that that's an aspect of Disney DNA that makes its way into this film.
Yeah.
So, you didn't like, by and large, The Witches.
No.
So, why don't you just hate the film?
Because I like all of the rest of the film. It's so weird. The general ongoing story that they have, which is it's quite flimsy. It's not like I love the story of the film, but it's just about these three kids that team up for their own reasons, and I think they're all quite good. And like, they've got a talking cat, and that's there are ways you could do a talking cat, and this isn't my favorite, but it's a talking cat, so that's a point in its favor. And like, it's just quite good, with the exception being that when you get to the end and you're suddenly reminded that you're supposed to have been caring about who the talking cat used to be. that was like, oh wait, I'd forgotten completely about that story and was only interested in the stuff going on in the present. But okay,
but you're supposed to care retrospectively about the poorly dubbed, strange-looking boy.
Turns out, and I can't even remember now. When we got to that end scene. So what happens is you get to the story resolves itself. They beat the witches, and then the cat becomes a ghost. And they go, wait, that can't happen. He's immortal. And the film goes, and then so he's a ghost, and then he is reunited with that girl who I can't remember, and so I literally can't even remember who that was. I don't even know what that story is. And I watched it in one sitting, and I could not remember who that girl was that he was interested in at all.
It's his sister.
Okay. I just don't.
Who was sacrificed in like the first scene of the film.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah. Like,
and then when I listened to the podcast about it that I was saying, to essentially remind myself what happened, to try and remember what happened, they talk about how quite shockingly you see that girl's corpse. You see her lying dead in the opening of the film, which I don't remember. I must have just gone off and done something. No, I definitely didn't go anywhere. I didn't so much as go and, pick up a drink without pausing the film. So I was so uninterested in that bit, I think. That
must have just passed out.
Oh no, I know. It would have been in the bit where I was trying to read the trivia on screen at the same time that I was then like, okay, no, I'm not concentrating enough. I'm turning this off.
Yeah,
that'll be it.
Well, look, the other thing that I will give you in your defense on this is the girl, his sister, like literally the worst actor ever. I don't want to be harsh on this literal infant child.
Yeah. But there's a good child actor.
Right there in the same film who's put in the exact same situation later in the movie and reacts to it in some way. Which the other child just doesn't. Like, the whole time that she's sat there about to be sacrificed by some witches. It's like... And I'm like... Yeah, like, you're not really conveying to me terror or pleading or, any of the things that, like, I might expect, A, a human child to convey in this situation, or B, that would create an emotional link to you. It's like these witches are all there going, ha ha, we're going to eat your soul, and blah, blah, blah. Here, drink this, and we're going to turn your brother into a cat, and now I'm shooting Emperor Palpatine lightning at your literal brother who's here to save you. And she's just
remember that, because he does when she zaps him, he does a good twist and fall. I remember thinking, so I apparently was paying attention. Maybe they just, because of what you're talking about, maybe there wasn't enough of a connection between me and the girl, and that she was in danger, that I thought of her as just like a prop for that scene, and not someone I needed to worry about or connect with or something.
Yeah,
or
she does nothing. She gives nothing. She barely comes across as a person. And come on, man. Like, you have to, like, especially given this is going to be like a emotional foundation point of the entire film. No, look, I don't want to say she deserved to die, but I am saying that.
If it turns out she's died,
let me Google that. Just in case.
Then I'm cancelling you, and this is the live stream of that cancellation.
Let me see.
Tragically died during the filming of Hocus Pocus.
She doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Nope, she's alive and is on Instagram.
Still acting?
I don't think so. But she's alive, and so I'm absolutely fine to criticize her.
Right. That doesn't make you think... You don't think of her as a more, like, a real person now, so now it's weird that we're dunking on her so much.
No, like, look, I'm sure she was a nice person then, and I'm sure she's fine now, unless she's not.
Yeah, that's another possibility.
Yeah. Unless she's horrible, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not commenting on that. I'm commenting on the fact that she just was crap in this film.
Okay.
And that's why you don't remember her.
I don't remember.
Because she doesn't do anything.
No, well, so that was a problem. But to talk about the actual sort of the body of the film with these other people, I thought all three of them were good. They, I mean, I don't know who the older girl is. I vaguely recognize her, and apparently she was in like an episode of House, and I did watch all of that, so maybe I recognize her from that. I don't know, but
yeah, the thing that I found entertaining about, just an aside on her, is like the when they go to her house,
Mm.
like, and it's that weird rich person's house, and
Yes.
they're doing that really, really weird looking Halloween party, quite
Mm.
frankly, where they've all got weird little masks and stuff. I was like, what is this house and what is this party?
I'm
It
not sure
all-
that was a Halloween party. I think that might have been the party the parents were having while all their kids were reliably out.
Sorry, you cut out intermittently during that sentence.
What I said was that I don't think that was what we would normally call a Halloween party. I think that was the party the parents of the local town were having while their children were reliably out.
Yes, so do I.
Yes.
My immediate thought is, this is all a bit eyes wide shut, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
And then I looked up the girl. She was then later in Eyes Wide Shut.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right, okay. Obviously, she had the same idea. But
Okay.
but yeah,
Yep. So
Yeah.
So I haven't got much to say about her. She was just normal in it. She was just fine. I'm
Sure.
already a fan of Omri from Erie, Indiana. So it was nice to see him.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was all right in this. He's quite good. And then
Yeah.
Little Thora was just brilliant in it in a
Yeah.
way that but that brilliance is because of how young she was. It's
Yeah.
really weird to see an actor a child
Yeah.
be the best actor in the group. But she
Yeah,
was.
I know. Honestly, in a way that, like, I felt like, not because he was doing anything wrong. It did end up just inevitably embarrassing Erie Indiana kid a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You shouldn't. If you're the star of Erie Indiana and you're there on those merits, you don't want to go there and be out acted by an 8-year-old. You just don't.
No.
But he kind of was. Like, I was saying to them on the stream while you were making your tea that when I saw her name in the credits, my mental timeline on it was totally wrong. So I was like, oh, Thora Birch. Okay, well, presumably then she's going to be like, like maybe a goth girl or something, like who also attends his school. Maybe it'll be a bit of a love triangle
Right.
kind of thing. Like, she'll be, because in those early scenes, he's trying to impress the popular girl and she doesn't seem to be going for it. So I was like, right. So he's
Yeah.
probably going to meet some outsider, sort of more, Tim Burton heroine kind of girl. And that'll be Thora Birch. And then she turns up. It's like, oh no, wait, this is 1993.
Yeah.
She's a literal child.
Tiny little
Right.
baby. Yeah.
Tiny little infant child. And yeah, she's just really good in it.
Yeah,
Really,
I don't understand how any child can be taught to act. Like, I don't understand how they've had time to be ready. But this one was.
yeah. You just get them like that sometimes. And frankly, usually they turn out crazy. So it's good that she didn't.
Right. I don't
Like,
know
you
anything
know-
about her. I don't know. She might be bad. She might be in that cult that the guy just got put away for. I don't know. I don't know what became of her, but she's great in it. So the reason I mention that is that the last time we did a film with a child actor in it, she turned out to be a recruiter
cult.
for a cult, the leader of whom just went to prison for, I think it was 120 years or maybe 220 years.
220 years.
Well, okay, it might be just 120 years then. If you think that's unreasonable sentence.
Thora Birch is still okay.
Hooray!
She's still acting. She took a bit of a break for a few years, but now is acting again.
Great.
And, people just like Thora Birch. She's just generally good in things.
Cool.
And, just very good. Like, I, too, liked the kids. And I was immediately charmed and taken with the strange pseudo-reality that they occupied. This strange, frankly, Power Rangers-ish
Yeah.
universe, like tonal universe that they occupy.
Talk about
like,
pseudo-reality. Here's a pseudo-reality moment. Omri, right, what's the boy's name in this?
the character?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, look, if you don't care, I'll just keep calling him Omri.
Max.
Okay, so Max. Having a big sulk about how much he hates the new place that he lives in. And to do his sulk, he had to go past the stairs that lead to the upstairs of his bedroom. I couldn't connect with that moment. That's like, Get it together, man. You've got an upstairs in your bedroom. Your bedroom has an upstairs? I want that now.
Was that not just the loft?
Well, if it was, it's just stairs in his bedroom. I think what it was the little tower, the little bell tower bit. I think you could just sit up there and look upstairs.
Yeah.
And look outside, I mean. But
yeah,
whatever. That's a strong argument for not having a big Mardy about your new house, in my opinion.
Yeah. For me, like, yes, that. But also, just the whole initial classroom scene, basically, where it's just like, they're being told a witchy ghost story in history class?
I guess, yeah.
And then, he's like, I'm not having any of your Halloween nonsense because I'm from LA and I'm wearing a tie-dye and I'm a 90s child and I'm going to tell you about all the cool things that I think about Halloween. And then the other girl is like, actually, I think you'll find that All Hallows Eve is the only day of the year where all the spirits of the dead can walk free upon the earth. And the rest of the class just stands up. Yes!
They give her a standing ovation for her saying what Halloween is. It was really weird.
And then he transitions straight from that into, oh, I see. I see you know what Halloween is. Well, yeah, I'm going to ask you out in the middle of class. In front of everyone.
That was a baller move, I gotta say. It
really was.
I've never seen confidence like that in my life. Like, he's got his back to the teacher.
Yeah.
He stands up between the teacher and her class to ask this girl out in class.
Yeah.
That is...
After he's just been slammed down about the true meaning of Halloween.
The guy's a master. I think that's what I'm talking about when I say that he comes across as a cool dude. That's amazing.
But yeah, like, the moment that scene was finished, I'm like, okay, that's the reality we're in now.
There was an equivalent to that actually took place in my school, and I'm just gonna tell you about it to illustrate the difference between reality and fantasy here. In reality, in my school, what happened was that a boy who reckoned he was the coolest dude in the world, and he kind of had the look of a cool dude, right?
Yeah.
He went into a different classroom than the one he was supposed to be in. We were about like 16, 17 at this point. It would have been like the very borderline last minute of still having to be at school, you know what I mean, before A-level.
Yeah.
Might even have been the first level of A-level, and then he dropped out quickly. He went into the next door classroom to extract his girlfriend from that classroom. And when the teacher there said no, and he said, like, ignore her, babe, come on, let's blow this joint, or whatever it was he said. And the girlfriend also said, no, what are you doing? This is a classroom. Go away. He went and he literally kicked the door off the boys' toilets in response to that. That's reality, right? Here's the fantasy. Omri just stands up, turns his back to the teacher, and goes like, do you want to go out because of our clashing opinions about Halloween? And she's like, she later kind of semi-rejects him, but not there in the moment. She just is just like, flipping it. All right, fine, I'll take your number then. I'm not even going to respond to this. This is amazing.
Yeah, that scene was a real statement of intent.
Yeah, but then he went home and had a big Mardy. So it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, but it was a Mardy that involved angrily playing the drums.
Angrily playing the drums, something really cool to have in your bedroom. Something cool people do. And to be fair, it was because he got... It was an interesting... I actually quite liked the take on bullying in this film, because it actually was sort of... It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to bully you with punches and flushing head down toilets and things like that. Like, they were kind of engaging in some comedy, like in a bit that they were having fun, and like he was... I thought the capability was there for him to essentially join in on their level, and he just whiffed it, and that's why he ended up without his trainers. I thought that was quite good. Really, isn't the blonde one interesting to look at out of the two bullies? Was
that Bulk or Skull?
That was Skull.
Yeah, okay.
The one who looks exactly like when Pain and Panic are in human disguise, and the blonde one out of them, and the one who looks exactly like that, crossed with like Axel, what's name out of the band, like he just had a very interesting look to him, and I was cut all the way through. I was trying to work out like. There's no real way of expressing it, but the part of my brain that tries to figure out how special effects are done was trying to figure out how he looked like that. I was like, what is this? Is it a puppet? Is it CG?
Is it a Robert Zemeckis mocap character?
Yeah. Just a very interesting look on that guy.
Yeah. No, like once I got past the initial bulk and scullery of it all, like
bulk and skullduggery.
Yeah, the bulk and skullduggery. They were. I thought I was okay with those bullies.
I like them
enough that I didn't want to just see them die alone in a cage,
rot forever in a cage. No, I thought they both put in a good performance. The blonde one especially, just because he was that level of elevated cartoon that I thought did fit with the rest of the world the film was producing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought they were good.
And like just to circle back to that moment.
Yeah.
It's not okay that he left them to die in a cage, right?
No, the only way it's okay is if you imagine that he goes back for them in a bit.
Or sends someone to go.
Or send someone that all he did there was teach them a brief lesson about, I don't know, something. He got his shoes back.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have just stayed in the cage, which is the implication.
Yeah, the moment he left, it was like, yeah, but we're going to call the police, though, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing. Because the thing is, if he lets them out, they're going to steal his trainers back. So he does need to be a certain distance from the cages.
Yeah. I don't know. Would they not then become his friends? Is that how friendship works?
That's how friendship works.
That's how we became friends.
Yeah. Weirdly, we found ourselves. We were both in cages, and we figured out a way. So I don't know what your worry is, because we got out, and now we're friends.
Yeah, and I still have your shoes.
Yeah. So but the thing is, those bullies are already friends, so that's not going to help them.
No, I suppose not. But anyway, yeah, they were fine.
They were good. As we're talking about sort of extras, as it were, like peripheral characters, there were some great ones in this. There were some great incidental characters. Here's number one. Thirsty Bus Driver. Love that guy.
Yes, I liked Thirsty Bus Driver.
Brilliant.
Like, he was creepy, but not in a bad way.
He was creepy in a way that they all consented to.
Yeah.
And so it was just great. Like, this guy, I didn't even get the impression that he does this to everyone. I think he just liked these three women in particular. So the three witches arrive at the bus, and it's their first time in the real world, so they don't really recognize everything. He opens the door.
They know what a bus is.
So he opens the door and they go, "What is this chariot?" And because it is Halloween and these are three witch characters. That's one of the cool conceits about the whole film, is that everyone in the town goes like, "Oh, you're the three witches." Because they know about those characters from the town's history, and they're like, "Yes, we are." And they think that they literally mean you are them, but the people think that they mean they're in costume as them.
Yeah.
So that was a good little bit that went on throughout the film. So this guy's like, "Oh," doesn't he say like, "Hubble bubble, I'm in trouble" or something? And
something along those lines.
Immediately starts chatting them up and just being like, "Wow, I'm lucky to have these three babes on my bus." And that's it. He's just that's his shtick, and they love it. And that's it. And they just have that. I found that refreshing, because another film would have had it be way creepier than that while trying to do the same joke. And in this one, it just worked.
Did he make a comment that he makes a comment that, to me, it came across to me as like a surprisingly frank admission of a sexual dysfunction.
No, to me it came across as a heartwarming admission that he's prepared for commitment. This is the moment where they say that he's chatting them up, and the witches say, "We want children," and he goes, "Well, it might take me a couple of goes, but I'm up for it." It might take a couple of goes.
Right.
That's
I
normal.
see. Okay. I thought he meant like, "Oh, you might have to be patient with me because I've had problems in the past." So
Either way,
It's an impressively vulnerable moment.
It is, isn't it? I just thought I thought that was a good bit. That's one guy. Number two, the cop. Liked that.
Oh, the fake cop.
This is the bit where, well, I mean, that's a spoiler, but yes, the bit where
Oh no, sorry.
they meet, they're trying to find help, the kids, and there's a cop on a bike, full on cop gear, and they start trying to explain it, and he does the whole bit of like, I put my life on the line every day in this city, and you come with your fake, stupid fairy tales. Get out of here! And they get out of here, and then a woman comes out of a nearby bar, having, I don't know, been to the loo or something, and she gets on his bike and goes, what you been up to? And he goes, oh, there was just some kids. They were pulling my chain, but it was really funny because they believed I was a real cop. And they go, ha ha ha, and they drive off. That's a good bit. That's a good little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there were a lot of those.
And then there was the cameo Satan and his wife moment.
Yeah, did you know who they were?
No, I had to look them up. One of them, well, I was correct in thinking one of them was one of Laverne and Shirley without being able to discern the difference between those two people. And then, basically, they both seem to have storied careers behind them. So I don't know
very much so.
So I don't know what specifically to come down on for him, except that he was the creator of Happy Days. So that links in with the Laverne and Shirley-ness of it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, they both have very, very extensive. Like, this is Gary and Penny Marshall, anyway. And they've acted, they've produced, they've directed. Each of them have directed very, very prominent films. He directed Pretty Woman. She directed Big.
Big, yeah.
Among other films, like, and for a Disney link, Gary Marshall, was the voice of Chicken Little's god-awful dad.
So if you haven't seen the film recently, I don't know who we're talking about, basically they are just out in the town trying to figure out what Halloween is, and Satan is there, and they're like, oh, it's our master. And he's another one of the people who goes, oh, it's the three what's-name sisters. And they go, yes, master. And he just cheerfully goes, brilliant. In you come. And they go in his house, and his wife's there, and she's like, what are you doing with these three women? And he's like, well, they seem to fancy me a bit, so I thought I'd bring them in my house. And she's like, oh, that annoys me. And he's like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? That's pretty much the bit.
But, and then she kind of...
They call me master, so what? I had to let them in.
She has to put up with it, and she does put up with, one of them going in her kitchen, one of them sitting down in the chair that she had been sat in and watching her TV and eating her crisps.
Yeah.
And it's only at the point that the young Sarah Jessica Parker one is slow dancing with the guy whilst calling him master that she's like, you know what?
Actually,
no. Actually, no.
Yeah. And his whole defense of this is like, I thought they were great.
Yeah. I really don't understand how that came up. How anyone involved came up with, oh, this bit should happen.
I know. Yeah. Were they involved?
We should get Hollywood power couple Gary and Penny Marshall to play those parts.
Were they involved in production or anything?
Not as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird bit. But I liked it, and I certainly liked it more than the other Disney thing that Gary Marshall has been involved in.
So, so this
worst ever father.
So this is a film that has managed to do two whole scenes where literally the main thing in it is some version of just horn, and yet I found them charming and appropriate. Which is something I think I would be... Not would be. Like, I watched this as an adult for the first time. I am critical of that in a lot of other things. So somewhere, the balance... A balance is being struck. And this is why I differentiate between all of this and the one section of the film that I think the balance isn't being correctly struck, but which is the main thing in the film.
Yeah, which is the main event,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? The reason that horniness is not inappropriate in this film in a way that it, for example, is inappropriate in a Goofy movie
And does it? I haven't seen that. Does it take place in a Goofy movie?
A Goofy movie is a very, very, very horny film.
But you find that inappropriate.
Yes,
It doesn't
yes,
balance right.
I find it intensely inappropriate. I don't want to commit us to doing an entire episode about how a Goofy movie is too sexy.
Why not?
But
I've never seen a Goofy movie. What possible better reason than that I have a Disney show that I have to watch Disney films that I can't be bothered watching in order to do?
In order to evaluate A, how sexy they are, and B,
the main
whether they
reason
should be
you
that
evaluate
sexy.
Disney. Yeah, the other main reason why you'd evaluate Disney. Yeah.
Whether it's right for them to be as sexy as they are.
Yeah.
And I argue in the case of a Goofy movie, no.
My journey with Disney.
But in this case, because it does feel like it is actually made for a specific audience who, as we've established, know what sex is.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
they know exactly what it is.
But not to a degree that it's like an issue.
Yeah.
Beyond, hey, we can make allusions to the fact that characters want to have sex, and isn't that fun?
And actually, while we're talking about it, I actually did think it was good that the 8-year-old Thora knows what virgin means, because
you
do know what it means. Like 8-year-olds, they do know. Like they do know a lot of that stuff. They might not know. They might not understand the nuances of it and know everything. But I think they would basically. Not all 8-year-olds. I don't think I, as an 8-year-old, would have known. But I think there are 8-year-olds in the world, particularly ones with much older brothers, for instance, who would know what virgin means. And I think it was cool that they acknowledged that she does without making it a big deal. It just makes her seem clever.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It doesn't feel weird. It just means that all right, we can just work from the assumption that the characters know basic things.
Yeah. I like that.
So that was I liked that aspect.
And basically, what it did was it saved us from having to have an awkward scene where they make a joke out of how he has to explain what it means.
Yeah. That's by far the
worst.
Which
I think we had that to a smaller degree to a passable, not too annoying degree in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. There was a moment a bit like that, and
but that film's aimed at a clearly younger audience.
Yeah. So yeah.
But, and that is demonstrative of the point that I'm making. It's like, I don't think we live in a world anymore where you would have Hocus Pocus and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids come out from the same studio and have them be aimed at such distinctly different groups. I feel like the way that films are marketed has flattened out to the degree that wouldn't be possible anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you can't market precisely in that way, because either a film is for every single person or it's for little children, when it comes up to the Disney end of the spectrum. And, I think that precludes the ability to kind of target things more appropriately, like this film is on paper, at least. Like we said, we can have the debate about whether it succeeds in all that, but you understand this film's intent, and it's not an intent that most modern films actually have, which is why I think maybe it's stuck in people's memories.
See, I definitely don't object to things like in a children's film, like the bus driver bit, for example, or like that is a bit that is. The little kids aren't going to fully get what's going on there, but they're going to get the basics of it, which is, this man thinks they're pretty, and that's funny because they're evil. Like, that works on that level, and then the parents and the older people...
So they've managed to unwittingly trick him into using the bus. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that works on that level, and then the older viewers can be like, this is quite funny. I'm definitely for that sort of thing, even if it represents... a sort of tonal shift. That's the sort I like, because it's just a grown-up way of treating children's material, I think.
Oh, yeah. And I think there's like a reasonable amount of that in this film. Like it's not just a small children's film. It definitely isn't one. But yeah, I don't know, it's like, and I think that's maybe why yeah, that's part of the staying power, because like I think a younger child could see this and feel to some degree like they're getting away with a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like it's not quite so it's not transgressive to the I think if you watch this as an 8 to 10 year old, you could watch this and feel like, oh, I'm watching a film that's a little bit for the older kids, but not to the degree that it's actually going to freak me out or like present me with things that I genuinely don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like baby's first horror film, or in that regard, because it is touching on horror adjacent concepts in a way that is, and not in a window dressing way. That's how I differentiate it from something like Beetlejuice or the Addams Family or whatever, where it's like, yeah, this is a horror themed thing, but the genre of this is not horror. The genre of this sort of is horror.
Yeah.
It's horror with all the crusts cut off. You know what I mean? And it just means that like, yeah, I can see it being a sort of a fun introduction for like younger kids to like, oh, like I got to watch a film where like a zombie rose from the earth and chased them through a crypt.
Yeah.
But like the least scary version of that possible, but still hitting those notes. It wasn't a comedy like send up of a zombie chasing them through a crypt. No, a zombie did chase them through a crypt. It's just it did it in a way that like a kid can be like, oh, that was exciting, wasn't it? It's like riding the little caterpillar through the apple roller coaster.
Yeah.
At a theme park and coming off it and be like, oh yeah, I rode a roller coaster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And technically you did.
Yeah.
Technically it has a little drop on it.
Yeah.
When you go through the apple or whatever, there's a bit of a if you're 8, there's a bit of a lurch there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it just gives you that it's the gateway drug, isn't it?
And actually there's a parallel there, because it is fun if you are like 14 and with your friends at a theme park to ironically go on that one and then admit to each other that actually you're having genuine fun on it. And Hocus Pocus is that sort of film.
Yeah, it genuinely is. Like, obviously, yeah, to a normal adult who doesn't have like our, problems / ability to reconnect with our inner children, let's call it. There's nothing for them in this. But if you're up to the age of that's why I'm saying like up to the age of 14, 15, 16 or whatever, and you did see this either at the time or through all of these endless repeats on the Disney Channel or whatever, I get it.
Yeah.
I get why you'd be like, huh, that's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially since like, it is starring a whole bunch of people who just, I think, would carry a lot of goodwill around them, and like, I think they'll like. I feel like it brings in a number of different audiences through the the breadth of type of person who's in it. So it's like Bette Midler has an audience, for sure. Kathy Najimy has her own like audience in like the kind of the comedy world. Like, I think she's in Sister Act back in the day, obviously. But then she was the voice of Peggy Hill in King of the Hill. So like she's, she's still known. Sarah Jessica Parker obviously has a big following of people who would know modern Sarah Jessica Parker and then be really entertained to see this version of her.
Was she already a known person when this came out?
I don't think it was like her introductory role or anything like that. But like, she wasn't what she is today.
Well, the reason I say is that, Bette Midler has an extremely established name at that time. I don't know her name, but the other one you just said, the Sister Act one, she had just been in Sister Act, so like she was recognizable. And I think Sister Act 2 was that year.
Could be, yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if Sarah Jessica Parker was also cast as like, and also this person you know from probably a TV series or something, isn't it?
I think this was still an early one for her.
Yeah.
She'd done stuff. Like she'd definitely done stuff that she would have been known for to some degree, but like she wasn't. I don't think, a headline name in the way she would be like 10 years later or whatever.
Right, and and again, I know who Omri Katz is from Erie, Indiana, but that doesn't make him a famous star that they picked to be the star of this film.
Was he already the star of Erie, Indiana at that time?
Yes, that Erie was a few years before this.
Yeah. I mean, do you know who was originally offered the lead role of Max?
I don't.
Would have probably brought a different level of star caliber to it. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, really?
But yeah, he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape instead, which is probably a better choice for his legitimate acting career. But that would have been interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, but as a result, like, it's just he's an interesting casting that people are like, oh, it's the kid from Erie, Indiana, and then then you've got Thora Birch, and then you've got like.
Do you know? Actually, I suppose I ought to acknowledge that maybe that is part of why I never connected with this, because this can be read as a babyish crap episode of Erie, Indiana. Like, it's a very similar setup. This boy is new in town, and he's trying to figure out what's wrong with the town. Except, Erie, Indiana was if you've never seen it, listeners, stroke viewers, it had quite. It got hooks in you. It did make you feel weird to watch it. Like, some of the things that they were coming against were like genuinely quite sinister. Like, there was a whole episode based around the fact that your heart can just stop, and then you'll be dead.
Yeah,
and like that was weird. And so and then some of the more ghosty, just ooky spooky ones were still quite affecting in some ways. And so this being a lot more sort of slapstick and silly, maybe even now, not as a kid, that's what's making me rate it lower than perhaps I ought to, because
you didn't need the gateway drug. You were already onto the hard stuff.
Yeah.
The hard stuff being Erie, Indiana. Apparently. Yeah, no, that's quite possible.
Erie, Indiana was a kids' X-Files that came out before the X-Files, and that's basically that.
But it was, as you say, it was one that was genuinely trying to be, eerie, wasn't it? Like, properly trying to be like, it wasn't just wearing the clothes of horror, it's actually trying to creep you out.
Yeah, but also, who it's trying to creep out is kids, so it's on a, I suppose, like a sort of round the twist level rather than a genuinely scary thing level.
Yeah. The twist is pretty...
Yeah.
Is unsettling.
Well, yeah, like, no, it is. That's why I bring it up. Like, there's actual horror that, like, scares you, like, oh, that's scary. But then there's, like, Erie, Indiana and Round the Twist are sort of, like, for children, but for them, it'll have that lasting effect where, you might not be scared, you might not hide from it, and you might not sit there thinking, oh, I don't want to watch this, but you're never going to forget some of the weird stuff they came up with.
Where do you put it? Okay, like, let's create a, a chart here. Like, so let's gradiate these.
Right, so right at the bottom of the chart is Play School.
No.
Or Play Bus for the later generation.
I'm talking about, like, Goosebumps. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Okay, so I was going to say Goosebumps when I decided to say Round the Twist. And the reason I didn't is because I've never seen Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark.
Really?
Yeah, these were slightly after my time. I wasn't watching that stuff. So, but I bet they're similar. But I just don't know. But cycling back, point horror books, some of the creepiest ones of those, which were when I was at school, these were a kind of a trend for a brief time. They were these horror books, but for sort of like teenagers, so sort of between 12 and 15, that sort of age.
Yeah.
But the really creepy ones that I had were written by R.L. Stine, who, when he'd finished those, wrote Goosebumps. So there's a similarity, I assume, there.
Yes, I would guess so. Like, I always said with Goosebumps books that Goosebumps books were brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, they're really great when you're a child.
Yeah.
Until you reach the age of about 12 or 13 and you realize, oh wait, I could literally write better than this.
Right.
And
Oh, right.
and then the spell is broken. But until then,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
yeah.
That's my memory of the point horror books, because they were now through this podcast I've been listening to, I found out there were other better writers who were also doing them, but the ones I read, which were the R.L. Stine ones, were like they were like sort of cheesy teen romance drama stuff, basically.
Yes, yeah.
And they weren't brilliantly written, but when you are that age, you're compelled because they feel grown up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
I think you'd probably put like Goosebumps and Point Horror at probably a lowish level. I always remember Are You Afraid of the Dark as being a bit spookier than that, but less. Like, I always thought of Erie, Indiana as... Like, when was that on TV?
Well, it was... I would have said, off my own bat, about 1992-ish.
No. What I mean is, what time
and channel? What time? Oh, sorry. Do you know, I can't remember. I can't tell you that.
Because I thought...
Sunday morning. I want to say Sunday morning, but I'm not sure.
Really?
Well,
I get
maybe.
I had this sense memory of it being on in that like post 6 o'clock.
Oh,
like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Star Trek sort of time.
Actually, do you know what? That does ring true as well. So maybe it was. The only reason I'm not going to commit to saying it was that I can remember what I watched with my family, and that was just a kids' TV thing that I watched by myself. And if it was on at the Fresh Prince time, that was tea time. So the whole family was there, and
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but that
what
doesn't.
Am I thinking of? Yeah.
Well, but that doesn't mean it wasn't. I might just not be remembering that. You know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
The reason I decided it might be Sunday morning is that it might have been Channel 4, and that was when their kids' stuff was on, because they didn't have the after-school slot. But if it was just ITV or BBC, then it was probably.
I thought it was on Channel 4 as well, but I don't.
Right.
I don't remember exactly. Like, I don't know
it
why.
It feels Channel 4, doesn't it? It fits it fits their thing. I don't know. Maybe we should have looked this up. Well, no, we couldn't have possibly predicted. Oh yeah, we could have. Yeah, we could have.
Various things says Wikipedia says Erie, Indiana was on Channel 4 March to July 1993.
Okay,
but we don't have a time slot for it, because my point is, if it was in that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Star Trek, Farscape kind of time area, that automatically elevates it to a more adult level of horror than Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was on Saturday mornings or whatever.
Well, at the very least, it means that whether or not that's actually true, it obviously sits in that part of your brain that accepts it as being in that category.
Yeah. So I would class that as a more adult type of horror than any of those other things.
Yeah.
I feel like we're currently infringing on the reputational space of your other podcast a little bit with this tone of chat. I feel like we're going to start talking about Woolworths any second.
Listen, all my podcasts are going to be like that. Like, there's no way getting around it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't want Chris to get angry.
I do. I want to do my whole life is about secretly pitting you two against each other. So that one day we'll have a showdown. We'll have one big podcast where it's just you two yelling at each other.
Oh, so you're like you have no skin in the game then?
Oh, no, I'm just waiting to see which is the winner, and then I can consolidate all my podcast work.
I see. Right. Okay. Interesting. Well, I guess I better prepare for that then.
Yeah.
So, what else?
I've got 3 things that I wanted to mention about the film that don't fit any category, and they're barely worth mentioning, but I'm just going to.
I have a few of those as well.
Because when we talked about whatever the last thing was that we talked about, no, I don't. I'm thinking of when we talked about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I can't remember what we talked about actually last. There was something I forgot to mention, and it bugged me when we'd finished. And hey, I'll mention it now. What was it? It was that in the first one, something happens, and the little boy with the spectacles comments on it in a way that's really weird and sounds like an advertising slogan. And I did as much Googling as I could possibly do, and I found nothing about it except for quotes from the film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I wish I could remember now what phrase that is. I think it's a part where something is in a river. That's all I can tell you. Never mind. Anyway, so back to this. Well, that can be an ongoing running thing of our podcast. I'll look it up and mention it next time. In this film, there is a bit in which Doug Jones...
That was barely a fragment of anything.
No. There is... The reason I brought it up is that if I don't mention these things I've noted down, I'll always regret it. I'll always know that I didn't say a thing. Doug Jones, the famous bendy man Doug Jones, wibbling and wobbling everywhere. He is a sort of zombie. Well, he's a zombie in this.
He's a zombie.
He's a zombie. I described him to you as a scarecrow, and that was incorrect. He's a zombie. Yes. You can see why I made the mistake. He looks like one.
I do.
He's stitched up, and he's got hair out everywhere, and he's dingle-dangle. He's a dingle-dangle zombie with a flippy-floppy head. And he...
That's what it says on his business card.
It probably is.
That's how he's got all this work over the years.
I know someone who knows him vaguely, or just knows him. I think just knows him, so I'll ask them.
Right, okay, yeah.
I'll ask them what it says on his card, and if it is that. Anyway,
yeah.
He, at one point, undoes the stitches on his mouth, he cuts them open, and out comes some stuff, the sort of stuff that's been in a zombie's mouth for a while, including some moths. And I'm just ripping this off from the other podcast, which is why I've credited them in full, because I knew I was going to say something that they said and that I'm copying. So this is the Erie Indiana podcast called Return to Erie Indiana. They said this. Those were real moths that he actually had in his mouth.
For the whole of shooting?
Yes. No. Quite the opposite, in fact. According to them, he had a sort of mouth guard thing in that meant the moths couldn't go, down his throat. And for as short a time as possible, he had mouth... Like, they run the cameras, and he immediately cut his mouth open and, quote-unquote, coughed them out. Because if they hadn't, the moths would have died. Because they would have suffocated inside his mouth. So, I don't know why they didn't just have his mouth be slightly open and the stitches be why they couldn't get out, but I guess they probably tried that and it wouldn't have worked. So, I don't think it was worth doing because I didn't notice there were any moths.
No, I just thought they were bits of paper.
Bits of paper, yeah, that's what I thought it was. So, maybe that trivia is not correct, but there it is anyway. That's what he claimed in an interview somewhere quite recently they did.
They must have just tried all these different technical experiments where they're trying to stuff moths into Doug Jones's mouth.
I don't know why they didn't.
Different ways.
Why they didn't just go with like dust and some animated moths?
Yeah,
because they could have done that. We already have an weirdly animated cat face that's odd.
That point that I wanted to raise: the talking cat animated CG.
Yeah,
for the time.
Yeah,
not that bad.
No, it's great. It's amazing for the time. For now, it's really weird and a bit off-putting. But for the time, I'm like, how did they do that?
Yeah, for the time, I was like, this is all right. This still looks functional to me. And when you think back to some of 90s CGI, the thing that immediately came to my mind is compare this to that monkey thing from Lost in Space.
Ah, yeah.
Do you remember that monkey thing from Lost in Space?
Only to the extent that I disapproved.
Like, if you revisit it in any capacity, it's so much worse than you remember it.
Right. So I'll be vehemently against it, not just disapproving.
You will. You really will.
The way the cat... Go on.
Sorry?
Well, I was going to talk about the cat.
I was just talking about the cat as well. Like, yeah, he just looks all right.
So here's what I think they've done. First off, it's a real cat, right? Agreed?
For sure, yeah.
It's a real cat.
Okay.
And they've done something to its face to make it be able to talk. And what I think they've done is they've got a fairly traditionally animated pair of eyes. Because they're animating the eyes. And even though the real cat would have had eyes, this one's got animated eyes doing cartoon stuff. And I think that may even be like hand animated. It might be CG, I'm not sure. Yeah. The mouth must be CG. Because I suppose it could be hand animated as well, but at least what they're doing is they are definitely CGing bits of the cat's face in the footage of the real cat to be like stretching and to accommodate the opening and closing of a mouth and there's stuff going on with the cheeks. and then the mouth is moving like that. But it has this weird effect. The animation is so smooth that it almost looks like one of those things where there's been a trend recently of like, here's what clips from Mulan, the 1998 one, would look like in 60 FPS, and it's all AI generated. It looks horrible, but it's making people go, "Oh, this looks great," because of course they see the smoothness and they just don't care about the fact that it would not be very good. But and that's because the effect has this effect on you, like smooth equals good, but uncanny, and that's what you have here. It's smooth, and you're like, "Wow, well done." But it's uncanny, it's weird. It doesn't quite match the reality of the rest of the film. But it is good, and for the time, it's quite an achievement.
I think so.
So
I actually do.
So I looked up who did it, and while I can't remember the name of the company, it's the company that did Babe. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And did a lot of... and this surprised me, because I thought we all knew who did this, a lot of the effects in Fellowship of the Ring. Specifically, the... well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that was Weta, wasn't it? But they did the stuff that Weta, it wasn't really their forte. They did, apparently, the forced perspective shots. Stuff like that. So they would have just been like a special effects company that were being consulted to set up stuff that wasn't puppets and CG. So apparently they did some work on Fellowship. There you go.
Yeah. Is it Rhythm and Hues?
It is.
Yeah. Yes, they're generally good. Very good.
Right.
And yeah, they did a very good job on that.
They did.
Like, to a degree that I was not expecting.
No.
Like,
no, I was expecting the puppet out of Sabrina. Frankly.
Which I would have welcomed.
Yeah, that would have been fine.
Like, I kind of unambiguously love this puppet from Sabrina.
Yeah.
It is, I think, one of my favorite puppets because he just looks a bit shit. Like, but in a way that like I really like.
No, I agree.
I've always loved that combination of that slightly bad puppet, and that voice, that specific voice coming out of it.
Yeah, the balance works perfectly. Here's a couple of bits I didn't like and thought were stupid. Right, number one, there's the bit where you have what is ostensibly a fake out ending, where they reckon they've killed the witches, but they're wrong. And you know they're wrong.
Oh, right.
You can tell they're wrong. But the way that you can tell they're wrong is that everything about it has been really stupid. So the film is just clipping along at a normal pace, right? And then the witches just walk into an oven or something, an incinerator. They just go in.
Yeah.
Plug the mic in. Plug the mic in. Plug the mic in. Okay.
How about now?
Correct.
We good?
Yes. There's an incinerator. They go in it. The kids close the door and burn them to cinders.
Yep.
And then the kids go out and just celebrate and party in the streets, and that's it. It's treated as if they've won. Now, you know they haven't, but even still, that's a weird bit. And the resolution to it is that they just are fine. The three witches have been burned to dust, and you've seen the dust. The dust has gone up the chimney and turned into a cloud of green, sort of swirly dust. And then, a few scenes later, it just goes, and they go, right, all right, back on with it, ladies. All right, and they just carry on. That's ridiculous. What a stupid bit.
It was a bit undercooked, wasn't it, that bit?
Yeah, and they weren't.
They weren't at all, despite what the film then would have us believe.
Yeah. Okay, so next thing that I thought was a bit stupid. At the end, right at the end, they do kill the witches, and the way that they do it is by tricking them to being out in the open when the sun comes up. And what happens to two of the witches is that they just explode.
Yes.
What happens to the main witch is that first she turns to stone, and it's the worst turning to stone I think I've ever seen.
It's really not good, is it?
No. So what happens is Bette Midler is there being Bette Midler. Then it cuts to the sun. Then it cuts back to Bette Midler, obviously different in some way, but we're not supposed to think she is yet. She is obviously harnessed up so that she's not going to move out of bounds of the special effect or something. There's something really weird about it. She's gone from like, I'm Bette Midler to like, hello, I am Bette Midler. Like, she's being very still. Her face looks different. Her hair looks different. Something's different. And then she goes like, and she goes like, and she does a 1993 computer morph.
Yeah.
Not a
yeah,
good
yeah,
one like in Black or White brackets 1991,
Yeah.
but a bad one like you could do on an Amiga. Like a normal morph. She just goes
Yeah.
ooh into a stone statue they've made of her, which in no way resembles the shot that they morphed her out of. At
No.
all.
It's not in the same pose. It
No!
doesn't look very much like
No,
her.
it's not on at the same angle, which is why it's so weird that she struck a particular pose and angle for the effect.
Yeah.
It's like, it has that effect that when I'm talking about how she looks different, it has that effect that Odo has just before he's about to turn into a liquid. Like, you
Yeah.
can tell he's standing in a certain rig so that
Yeah.
it's gonna be fine for the special effects people to use, you know? It's
Yeah.
like that.
Or the transporters on 60s Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
talking...
they'll
I'm
be
talking,
walking, and then they'll be like,
yeah,
then,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm talking season 1 Odo, where it's
Yeah.
obviously a completely different shot. Okay, so that. And then it explodes! The statue then explodes like the other 3 witches did. So what was the point of all of that? Anyway.
I think it's 2 different things that are happening.
Okay.
Because they explode because of the sun.
Yeah.
But I think she turns to stone because she's touched the hallowed ground.
Oh, yes, right, okay.
Yeah.
Is the ground hallowed generally, or is that because they put salt down or something?
It's hallowed generally. It's
Right.
that graveyard is hallowed ground.
Right.
That's why the witches couldn't touch the floor. And
Right.
then she eventually falls off. She is knocked off her broomstick and is on that ground.
Got it.
And at first I was like, nothing appears to be happening to her as a result of being on this hallowed ground that they've been talking about all film. But then she then turns to stone.
Right. Okay.
After her feet were sizzling initially.
Yes, for a while.
And yeah, that's that. And then her exploding is the
Because of the
same
sun.
thing from being in the sun.
Got it.
It doesn't make the effect any better.
No. So that leads me then to my last little just a thing I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And it follows shortly. But I'm going to the toilet. So.
Oh no.
Yeah. With 2 options. Do you want to fill, or shall I put my go to the toilet song on?
I can fill.
Okay. See you soon.
So, wait, how long are you gonna be?
Not long. I'm just muting my mic for a moment.
Oh.
Okay. See you in a sec.
I now can't hear Dave. Okay, right, yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Because I can answer some questions right now while I fill. Because he said he's going to the toilet, and I've just realized I didn't think to ask how long he was going to be while he could still hear me talking. So, somebody help me fill this empty void in my life, in my soul. Anyone, please. Because otherwise, I'm just gonna. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. No one's asking anything. I'm all alone on a podcast about Hocus Pocus. Sad time, really. But hello, Jeremy. I appreciate your engagement, but you've only said hello. Oh, you've not seen Hocus Pocus. Okay. Yeah, I can see how that would limit your ability to ask me any questions about it. Yeah. Well, I hope this has been interesting anyway to all of you people who haven't seen Hocus Pocus. It's quite good, as it turns out. I mean, obviously, you know, we have mixed thoughts on it, but it's it's worth watching, or one Halloween or the other. It's sufficiently a little bit spooky. Has Bette Midler in it. She sings a big weird song at one point. It's a nice cat, nice CGI cat. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I'm not filling very successfully, am I? I don't know. Oh God! All right, yeah, he's back. He's back. He's back. Thank God. This has been an existential nightmare. I've hated every minute of this.
Hello.
Hello, Dave. I've been filling expertly.
Right. Okay, well, I'm back now.
I had loads to say.
Right.
And I didn't
Good.
have a breakdown.
Cool, good. Okay, good. That's good news.
So don't worry about that. Like,
Great.
if you just don't worry about it.
I won't.
Don't worry about it.
I won't.
Don't worry about it.
I'm completely confident that was fine.
Yeah, it was 100% fine. It was 100%
That's great.
fine.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't feel. Yeah, it was okay. It was all right. It was okay.
Good.
It was all right. We're okay.
Okay, so then this leads me to my final point, which is that here's a bit I didn't like, but which I thought I was going to. So there's the bit where they are gonna try and fight the witches or whatever, and they're in the house, and Omri, Max, goes.
Yeah.
They've got his sister, right, and they're about to whatever they're gonna do, kill her or suck her brain out, whatever it is they're gonna do, her soul or whatever it is. And he goes, wait. And he stands there doing a long speech, and I feel like he could have said it quicker. But anyway, it turns out that actually he's filling for time, because he goes, there's one thing I know that you don't know. And they go, oh, yes? What's that? And he goes, daylight savings time. And I'm like, oh, cool, wait a minute. They won't know about that. That was invented at a particular time. The sun's going to come up at a time they don't expect. And sure enough, outside, lights go on, and they go, it's the sun. And then, no, it turns out to be a trick. Actually, they turned on car headlights. So, so then it's a stupid waste of a good line. What was that thing about daylight savings time, then? They still don't know what that means. They never found out what he meant by that. And it wasn't. It wasn't it. That wasn't what it was.
No.
That's undercooked.
It was... Yeah, like you say, it just seemed like they'd come up with a genuinely clever setup and then not used it.
And then that wasn't what they did.
Of something that was stupid.
Yeah, that would have been a really cool way for them to actually defeat them. And like, I get that they still had time before they needed the film to be longer and for them to be in a different place. But I feel like he could have used that trick in the other place at the end of the film.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Like that. I'd forgotten about it by the time I got to the end, but no, that was stupid.
Yeah, the only way I can imagine why that's there is because in some earlier version it was going to be that's what he says when the sun comes up, but then they're just like, well, we need to keep it in, but let's just make it a trick or something. I don't know what. No.
Yeah.
But there you go. Apart from that, I thought it was an alright film.
Yep.
Those are my notes.
Apart from those things and the fact that you hated the central performances,
the
entire point,
entire
point of the entire film.
Yeah.
It was an alright film.
Yeah. That's an accurate assessment of it.
Yeah.
Of my reaction to the film, yeah.
So, what do you think then
about
the prospect of Hocus Pocus 2?
Yeah. Now, and it is 2. It's not a reboot.
It appears to be a sequel that they're talking about.
I think I'm broadly in favor of that as an idea. Because why on earth not? I can't really make any predictions about it because as we've already established, they do not make that kind of film anymore. So
no, I know.
So it's likely that they will continue not to make that kind of film with the sequel, and that it'll either therefore be a modern type film that I'm comfortable with, or a modern type film that's really bad.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it depends. Like, because I'm just looking on Wikipedia. In 2018, a book titled Hocus Pocus and the All-New Sequel was released, which contained a novelization of the film and a sequel story. And there doesn't seem to be any indication there doesn't seem to be any indication that this sequel story they put in this book 2 years ago is the story they're going to then use in the actual film that they're now making. But
that's weird.
In that sequel, the sequel focuses on Max and Allison's daughter, who grew up hearing the family story of the first film, and parents who avoid Halloween as much as possible. She is skeptical of the tale and ends up at the Sanderson house on Halloween, 25 years to the day after the events of the first movie, in an attempt to prove there's nothing to the story. If they do that, that would be very boring. That's right out of the kind of rote legacy sequel playbook that I think I'm a little bit over at
Yeah.
this stage.
The
I'm sure we already said some aspect of this when we were talking about the concept of this new Honey, I Shrunk the
Honey, I
Kids
Shrunk.
reboot.
That's exactly what I was just thinking of. Yeah, that's what that looks
Like,
like it's going to be.
yeah, I'm no longer an easy mark for this idea of like, oh, 20 years later, the original characters are still around and they are kind of like not doing that anymore, and they've sort of moved into the adult role, and now there's a new child, and they're basically going to fulfill the exact same role, and we're going to do the basic same plot.
Yeah.
Over again.
And it's a soft reboot, but that lets old people think it isn't.
Yes, exactly. And they got away with that in 2015 with The Force Awakens when that was a novel concept. And in the years since, enough people have tried to do that to varying degrees of success that it sort of feels like, no, I don't. That's no longer something I necessarily welcome anymore, unless you have something, a genuinely interesting new spin on it to pick the story up. Like,
what would be interesting, it would, I'm sure, be stupid, but it would be at least interesting, is if instead of... Because the reason that problem arises is that you're like, okay, how do we get kids today into that concept? Well, we just do it again. It worked last time, so we just give them the same concept. But the thing is, we don't really think they'll fully engage with an old film, so we'll just make a new film with all the trappings of a current modern film, and we'll throw the old actors in, as many of them we can get, and they can be their old characters, but it's actually about these kids going through the same thing. Another approach that you could take is that you aim it squarely at the audience who watched the first film and are now old. And you go, okay, no, what if this time the same characters are still like either your age or older than you, whatever. It's the same people. And the witches are back, but this time it's actually really scary. And it's like a film for grown-ups now, with the same cast, but this time it's actually scary. Stroke, funny, but for your age group. Yeah, that's another option. I don't think that's what they'll do, but I actually would really enjoy watching that.
I think I would enjoy that, and the reason I think I would enjoy that is because I've just watched, or I've just almost finished watching Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid sequel series, which does a very good job of doing kind of what you're describing,
right?
Of picking up with the original characters and redoing, like continuing the story and redoing aspects of the same themes, but taking into account the fact that the characters are older and the audience is older.
Yeah.
While still including like younger generation characters so that you can reframe it in that different way.
Yeah.
But leaning into the idea of like the characters are older, so we need to age the themes up.
Yeah.
Like, and Cobra Kai is one of the best examples to date of how to do that.
Right.
And now that I've seen it do that, I'm now more interested in the idea of that than I am in, hey, it's the old cast and now they're the mentors and here's a kid who's basically who they were 20 years ago and they're going to do the same story again. Like, that's, come on, that's played out.
Because either way, if you're doing Hocus Pocus 2, you haven't got a Hocus Pocus 2 unless you've got all three of the original witches back and in the exact level of prominence they were in the first film. You can't have different witches. You can't have their daughters or whatever. Like, it's got to be them.
No. They seem to have all confirmed that they're interested in returning.
But they're going to be noticeably and interestingly older than they were in the first one. And that isn't really going to make sense. Because the whole point was that they were going to be young forever unless they got blown up, which they did. Now, oh no, there is a precedent, because do you remember in this film when they definitely died and were dissolved into dust and just came back to life and were fine? So they could just come back to life and be fine.
And be fine.
But then we have to establish... I guess they didn't get their potion, so they were older.
Yeah. Yeah, look, there'll be ways. There'll be ways to do it.
But the reason I bring it up at all is that, like, I feel as if people making a full reboot, like, now there's a new kid or whatever, would also be interested in keeping the witches a certain age for some reason, just because that's the decision they made originally, so they would feel like it's the decision we need to make again. Because they didn't cast, old women originally, which, I don't know how old Bette Midler is, but I bet she's old now. I bet you can call her old now, right?
I would very much assume so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she is 74 now.
okay, so that counts. That's that's a version of old, and so like that's going to be noticeable in a way that it wasn't part of the character of the original trio, and So I only brought it up because I feel like someone involved in that process might feel like, well, therefore we have to recast. But
no, I don't think. Like, given how the entire legacy of this film is based on people picking it up and discovering it, they'll have to know that. Part of the whole point is those three actors.
Yes. So that it just opens. It means that there are different ways they can tackle it. It's not going to be a full young cast reboot. Like, I suppose maybe what I'm thinking about is like, that recently the new version of The Witches came out, and it's not going to be something like that. It's literally going to be if you had Angelica Houston back for the new version of The Witches, you'd be tempted to go like, well, we can take this in a few directions then.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's going to be more like that, and I'll be interested because we both missed the boat on Hocus Pocus.
We did, yeah.
I can't honestly say that I'm on the boat now.
No, I'm not on it. No,
I'm not on the boat, but I respect the boat.
Yeah,
it's a perfectly nice old boat.
Yeah. I'm not firing any cannons at it. Not trying to capsize it.
No,
it's nice. I'm happy it's there. All the people on it seem to be having a much happier time than me, so that's cool.
Yeah. The thing that I sort of
on my grumpy boat. I'm here on the grumpy boat that's got like it's all like black sails and they're all torn and ragged and
just like loads of pollution coming out the big chimneys.
The big chimneys, yeah.
Yeah.
There's oil pumping out of the sideways chimney. It's the boat from the opening of the Smoggies. That's what
I think in retrospect, I was describing the boat from the Smoggies. Yeah.
It's presumably in the rest of the Smoggies, but I can only remember the intro.
Yeah, well, I know, because God knows I'm not watching the Smoggies.
No. You're not supposed to watch the Smoggies. You're supposed to stop the Smoggies.
Oh yeah.
That's right, it was called Stop the Smoggies, wasn't it?
Was it called that?
Oh, it's one of these things where it was called Stop the Smoggies or Smoggies, depending on what region you're in. I don't know which is which. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. I've no patience or interest with the Smoggies.
Doesn't matter.
Can't be doing with them. And I'm not them. I am not them in this analogy.
No, they're irrelevant.
Boat-based analogy.
No, we've just got another sad, polluty boat.
Yes, exactly. The Smoggies are somewhere else.
Even the boat isn't relevant. Even the boat is just something I brought up in the background while you were making your real point. So go back to that.
I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, no, I do. There's a level, I suppose, on which I am actually kind of happy that it succeeded, which is that like you watch the film, and it's very honest. I think.
Yeah.
Like it's very. I don't feel. Someone said it a while ago in the chat, but it's a very uncynical movie. I think. Like it's very earnest. And what it earnestly is we want to make a good old Halloween fun time movie. Yeah. We want to make a nice film that kids and parents can watch at Halloween. And they must have thought when it came out initially, oh, we failed. We failed to do that. Like, people don't care. Like, this isn't going to be a film that people gather around to watch at Halloween. And in the years since, it's like, no, it is. It is. Like, it became the Halloween classic that they obviously intended it to be.
And maybe perhaps you can correct me on this, but that is sort of my memory of what happened with Nightmare Before Christmas as well. I don't remember it being that big of a deal when it came out, but then, like, about 5 years later, it suddenly got this resurgence of interest among teenagers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. I don't think Nightmare Before Christmas did loads of business when it first came out. Like, I don't think it was. I'm not sure.
I bet it did better than Hocus Pocus.
I'm sure it did. Yeah, I think it was seen as like a moderate hit or whatever at the time, Nightmare Before Christmas, but like nothing on the level that it's become since.
No.
Obviously, and yeah, I don't know. It's just I always sort of there's always a certain feel good value to that where people, where it looks initially like, oh, it's just kind of flopped or whatever, but then people find it again. I remember thinking something similar around the time that when The Greatest Showman came out, actually, because that was, from all accounts, not that good a film, and certainly not a particularly accurate portrayal of its source material, but it was definitely a passion project for everybody involved. Most especially Hugh Jackman, who's like, spent years being like, yeah, I'm gonna, I want to get this original musical concept that I'm really worked hard on off the ground, and
not very original.
Really, sorry.
As a Barnum fan, I muttered, not very original.
Well, yeah. But
Barnum the musical, not Barnum the man, who seems to have been something of a doof.
Something of one, yes. But yeah, you know what I mean? It was a big passion project for him and all involved. And when it first came out, it didn't, like in the first weekend, it just looked like, no one really cares. And just the tone of how they were all talking about it was just like, well, like, we're all put a lot into this and hopefully it finds its audience over time. And then it just went and went and went, like, for like months after that. And like, went from a film that everyone had just thought, oh, well, whatever, it's just a flop, to like, oh no, this is a smash hit. And then it's just, on some level, you just feel like, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice. They thought they put a lot of work into this quite earnestly, and initially it looked like it'd just all been for nothing, and then then it rallied round, and now Hocus Pocus is this generational classic for some reason.
There's another comparison that's actually quite apt, because it links back to a few things we've been talking about. That's what happened with the Beetlejuice musical, because it came out sometime, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. And it was like, the reviews weren't good and it didn't do well. And then, just randomly, people started making TikToks about it. And it just roared into success. And it smashed all the records. And it was like, it just did brilliantly well. And there was this unfortunate tangle of events, which is that because it had done so badly originally, the theatre were just like, okay, cool, you've got a couple of months, and then we're going to have a new Hugh Jackman version of The Music Man instead. And by the time, like, it took off and was, like, obviously one of the hottest tickets, it was like, oh crap, we've signed all the things already. Like, I'm afraid you're still kicked out, even though you are this summer's hottest musical. Damn! Oh no! And then the whole thing was complicated by the fact that coronavirus shut down all the theaters anyway. When it was supposed to end this June or July, and that's when we would find out what its fate was going to be, and if another theater was taking it up or whatever, and we just don't know. But it was it connects with this because it was another success story that everyone thought and had written off and had signed legal documents acknowledging was a total failure. And then it just surged. Yeah.
Well, hopefully that one ends up having as happy an ending as Hocus Pocus seems to have had.
Yes, yeah. Having seen it, it's a good show and I enjoy it. And I've sent off for the album and everything. I don't know. In fact, I don't know where it is. It should have arrived by now. I'll have to look that up after this. Anyway.
I am basically done on the subject of Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, me too. That's all my notes covered. I think we've finished at the under 4 hour mark. We're only just under the 3 hour mark. I thought we were doing well. I thought we were more of a 2 hour episode, but no, it's 2 hours 50.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's a brisk, tidy episode by our standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm more or less finished then. So, unless you have any additional closing thoughts, I'm willing to wrap this up.
I don't think I have. I suppose. Oh, I suppose I'll say. Well, this is a version of wrapping up. My wrap-up point is that if you, as a kid, enjoyed Hocus Pocus, and didn't watch Erie, Indiana, then do. It's the thing. It should have been the other way around. Hocus Pocus should have come out and then Erie, Indiana, because it's like a graduation from the promise of Hocus Pocus into like, what if that actually was a bit creepy, but it's the same kid. Well, it's the same two kids. Yeah. Go. That's what that is. Track it down, watch it. It's real good. We did rewatch it not long ago, and it remains good.
What, Erie, Indiana?
Yeah, we watched it. I mean, maybe 5 years ago or something. But
right, okay, yeah.
At least the first season was just great. It was really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that sort of surprises me a little bit.
And it's got friend of the pod, that bloke who was Gomez Adams on the telly in it.
John Astin.
John Astin, always good in everything. He is a regular on Erie, Indiana. So go and watch it.
Okay, well that is a solid recommendation.
Yeah. And it's got those. It's got like I think the first episode has those twins from Gremlins 2 in it as well. Another solid recommendation.
I don't know them well enough.
They were like they look like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They're sort of round twins, and they. I mean, that's my memory of them. Maybe I'm wrong, but they.
Maybe you're being grossly unfair.
I could be, but they were like these two scientists in Gremlins 2 who were doing some science. And never mind, it doesn't matter. They're adults. They're not children twins. They're adult twins.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up afterwards.
Yes. That's my irrelevant point.
Let's call time on this escapade.
Yes.
I hope you've all had a delightfully spooky time. On this, the not particularly most scary day of any year, because it's just November the 1st.
Yeah.
But I hope that listening to us talk has created a certain sense of ghostliness and witchy magic in your home somehow.
Yeah. I hope it created that without having put any effort into making it.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I hope.
Let's go further. I hope that listening to us talk has made you, like, one, richer financially. Two, I hope your health has increased. And your whole life is just better on those two fronts. That's what I hope.
Yeah.
I haven't put any effort into making it happen, and I don't think it will have. But I hope it did.
Yeah. On top of the witchy magic as well.
On top of the witchy magic, yeah. That's a given.
Yeah, that's, the wealth and the health, that's just a bonus, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We will let you know when we're going to do another episode. Hopefully it won't be ages and ages.
Hopefully it'll be more than 5 minutes before it starts next time.
Yeah, hopefully. And hopefully next time we'll tell you, the correct channel that we're going to be on. I wonder if there's anyone still refreshing your Twitch right now.
Well, look, I didn't think you told them about the Twitch. I thought you gave a nicely ambiguous tweet where you said it was going to happen, but not where. And I thought that was deliberate.
I did one like 10 minutes before because I thought this is probably the time I should post the link, and I took a punt on the idea that it's probably going to be Twitch.
Fair.
So hopefully next time we will be able to tell you the correct time and the correct place, and it won't be in a year and a half.
No.
Wait,
why'd you say that? Like, it's only been a few months or weeks or something since we did the last one.
True, but then before that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope a lot of things.
Yeah. The future of the podcast is always balancing on a tightrope of hope.
We do genuinely have a lot of things that we can talk about. We still have things in the works. We still have things that are ready to be released.
Yeah.
You still need to release the the permanent video link and audio of the Mulan one that we did a few weeks ago.
That's right.
Which I think we both had a lot to get our teeth into on that one. If you somehow managed to miss it.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's plenty more things that we can talk about coming up. So
yes.
Until that time. We have been Serious Disness. You can follow us at Serious Disness on Twitter.
Yes.
Or you can go to our Patreon.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
They go to patreon.com/Serious Disness. And then
Yes.
they look at the the letterhead and so on and see if it looks like I got that right just then when I said that.
Yes. As with the early days of Dave's Sonic podcast, there's not really anything there yet.
There's no real reason to support us, but it'd be nice.
Yes, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if you could do that, just like our number one fan Jeremy has done.
Yeah.
And
is that fair? It says I've gone there and it says we've got 2 patrons, so we really ought to be mentioning both, not just Jeremy.
Yes.
But I don't know who they are.
The other guy is not in.
Unless you are. He was a person called Gage.
Microphone.
How about that?
Perfect. Everybody, I've given Jahan my old microphone. The reason it's my old microphone is that the USB cable just flops out. It hasn't got the thing. That's why there's tape on the bottom of it. And then it cuts to it automatically defaults to the one on his headphones, which is too loud. You see, so that's.
So yeah, our other patron is a guy called Gage, who I don't believe is currently here.
Okay.
So if you are, then shout out to you as well. I'm
Right.
just shouting out to Jeremy because he's visibly here.
He's here, which means he's automatically our biggest supporter because he's actually here.
Yes.
It's like how, if you were doing a school play and you had the starring role and like one of your parents turned up to it, but the other one you still knew was supporting you. It's just that they had more important things to do. It's unambiguous which of them is your current strongest supporter.
No.
Even if there's a perfectly good reason why the other one couldn't come. Like they're not just an absent, like it's not just that they're just decided not to bother. They are detained. Nevertheless, in the current circumstance, there's a winner.
Yes. And Jeremy was the first one.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to support us in that manner, please feel free to do so. And we are intending to work towards a position where we broadcast and release episodes more regularly.
Yeah.
And B, after that, we can then do Patreon stuff.
Yeah. I don't know what, but something.
Oh, we'll think of something.
Yeah.
Like, we'll think of something. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But yeah, until that time, follow us on @SeriousDisness on Twitter. You can follow me on @Mousetalica on Twitter.
Or me on @DemonTomatoDave.
Yes. So,
and also,
we're going
also on Twitch. Oh, and also, I've got another podcast you might want to listen to called Sonic the Comic, the podcast, in which me and somebody else, not this guy, that's the right way to point. Yeah, not that one. Another person, Chris McFeely, out of Transformers stuff. We read the British comics of Sonic the Hedgehog from 1993 onwards, and we just sort of live in that space. It's the one that Jahan referred to earlier as being at least a third a Woolworths-based podcast, because it's just about us remembering what it was like to live when it was acceptable, when the world was fine, as far as we could tell, and that's what it's a podcast about.
When the world was fine and Sonic was fine.
Yeah, when things were fine. And of course, there are asterisks to all of those points, and there's just stuff that we weren't aware of that wasn't fine or that was looming over the horizon in all cases. But we thought it was fine, and we talk about that, and it's a happy experience. So Sonic the Comic, the podcast.
The only thing that there was an asterisk over is that Sonic the Comic was good, right?
Well, I mean, there's always an asterisk over the assertion that something was good, but not in my estimation, it was just good.
Yes, and
apart from all the stuff in it that was rubbish
or offensive.
Exactly. There's that. There's one issue that was just outright racist. Luckily for us, it was like a spin-off, so we don't need to let that taint the experience of the whole thing.
Yes. But yeah, by all means, go and listen to that. Dave and Chris talk in great detail, with great interest, and at great length about all that. And I can assure you that it is very accessible, even if you've never read the comic, because I haven't.
No, Jahan is one of our listeners, and that's weird to me, because he's not in the slightest bit interested in any of the topics discussed. Well, maybe, I don't know if you're a Woolworths fan.
I'm aware enough of all of the things you're talking about that I can follow.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a good podcast, like I hope you thought this one was.
Yes.
In the meantime, you guys go away.
Go
and
away.
Do something else with your lives.
Go away.
Go away, everyone.
Bye. I will
Go
stop
away.
the button. Well, no, I'll press the button that will stop the stream. Now, bye.